All systems nominal.
それでは早速全速前進
You don't know what the weak point of a mech is? The fucking pilot.
Get away from her, you bitch!
His papers say he was a raven.
Protocol 3.
A pattern blue!
Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants, a giant robot power hour discussing mechs across media, their stories, and why we love them. I'm Nico, and I'm joined by Alice.
This is a hater episode.
And Brian.
Hey, the aliens turned him straight, right?
This time around, we're discussing Pacific Rim. No, not the good one. Who do you take us for? It's Pacific Rim Uprising. Let's launch into it.
My dad was here. He'd probably give you a big speech. Make you feel invincible. I'm not my father. I'm not a hero like he was. Like Riley Beckett and Mako Mori. But they didn't start out that way. They started out as cadets, just like you. We remember them as giants because they stood tall, because they stood together.
What brand are we curating for ourselves?
Well, our next recording is G-Savior, so you tell me. Pacific Rim Uprising. This movie was released in 2018. It was directed by Stephen S. DeKnight, with script credited to him, Emily Carmichael, Kira Snyder, and T.S. Nolan. So, notably, Guillermo del Toro did not direct, but was attached to the project as a producer. He did an interview with Entertainment Weekly where he put his lack of involvement down to scheduling issues. Apparently, the movie was originally going to film in Toronto, but the sets weren't secured in time. So it was moved to China, and they said, Guillermo del Toro, can you move to China real quick and direct this film? And he said, no, I'm in the middle of directing my Oscar-winning film, The Shape of Water. So he did not move, and he just stayed attached as a producer credit. It's unclear how much direct involvement he had. This movie was a production swamp. I have a lot of production notes. But a major aggravating factor in all of this were issues with the production studios. So the original movie was released by Warner Brothers, but Uprising was released by Universal. It was supposed to begin filming in 2015, when it would have been timely, like 2 years after the original. But issues between Universal and Legendary delayed it. But then Legendary was purchased by a Chinese company, Chinese Wanda Group. And so some people were like, listen, the project might get revived because the original Pacific Rim was way more popular overseas than it was in the US, but particularly in China. And this was confirmed in 2016 when the project was re-announced and attached to DeKnight. I don't know if any of you recognize these names. I did a little bit of a deep dive on a bunch of the names that I mentioned.
I recognized DeKnight when I saw
Okay, what do you know
name.
him from? DeKnight?
Buffy. Did some writing on Buffy. That's all I knew him from. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. So DeKnight's resume is mainly in TV.
Sorry, I was just about to say that makes way too... when you said that to me, I immediately thought about the ice cream scene. That makes so much sense to me.
Oh, there's going to be... a lot of things are going to be making sense to you, I feel. The pieces are going to be coming together. You're going to be in your mind palace assembling the puzzle. So DeKnight's resume is mainly in TV. He worked on Smallville, Buffy, Angel, the first season of Netflix's Daredevil, and was, I think, notably part of the Transformers writers' room at Paramount. Uprising is the only movie he's ever directed. Emily Carmichael, the next writing credit, wrote and directed a number of short films, an animated web series, and went on to have a writer's credit on Jurassic World Dominion. Kira Snyder also comes out of TV. She wrote and produced for shows like Eureka, The 100, and later the Handmaid's Tale adaptation. And T.S. Nolan is best known for his writing work on the Maze Runner movies. So that's kind of the director and writer's room we had here.
I don't want to...
So interesting.
I don't want to throw shade at writers ever. They have a very hard job, and it's very hard to break into that. That's it. That's what I'll say about... Four people wrote this? There were 4 people in this writer's room?
Oh,
More than that is what it looks like.
Wasn't AI generated in 2016?
No.
Well, no, I mean, right away we're seeing the thing. These are all TV writers writing a blockbuster summer action film.
I mean, we'll get into it, but the whole time I was watching this movie, I was like, wow, this is a great TV show shoved into a movie.
Yeah. But lest you be deceived, these were not the only writers to get hands on this ball.
Oh, good.
These are just the ones that have writing credits on the final film.
That's so great. That's so great. You know what we really need more of? More voices in the room. That's great. Yep.
Communism means that all movies will be produced like this. No. So after the project was transferred from Del Toro to DeKnight, it was publicized that John Spates would be writing the script. He had previously worked on Prometheus, Doctor Strange, and the Mummy remake. Brian is making a face that I feel sums up some feelings. But now he's best known for his work actually on Dune and Dune Part 2. So kind of a range. But then, don't worry, he didn't have his name attached to this for long. Then Derek Connolly was brought in to rewrite that script again in 2016. Derek Connolly's major credits being Jurassic World and Kong Skull Island. Given the final writing credits, it's safe to say the script was rewritten again, which brings us to potentially 4 different scripts for those keeping score at home.
It really, 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 really shows.
Yeah.
Yep, there's a lot.
Notably absent from the writing or producing credits is Del Toro's original co-writer on the 2013 movie, Travis Beacham, or the other writer Del Toro had mentioned collaborating on a script with him and Beacham in 2014, Zach Penn, who was the co-writer of The Avengers and many other comic book adaptations. A lot of X-Men stuff. He worked on X2 and X-Men The Last Stand. So it's interesting. So a lot of different writers' names were attached to this, but in the end, we got the 4 that we did. So this movie came out to about 1 hour and 50-ish minutes. About 10 minutes of that is credits. So about 2 hours of your time. I think so. Anyway.
It's a long 2 hours.
There's a good 90-minute movie in here. I say this about a lot of things, but just like, yeah.
I liked when it kept ending. Like, I was like, oh, this is the big bad thing that's happening. And then another thing happened.
Yeah. Well, that's movies, baby. I think that's what they said in interviews about this one. No.
That's movies, baby.
That's movies, baby. Is this part of a franchise? So yes. So this is technically part of the Pacific Rim franchise. There's an interesting kind of, I think The Matrix is most famous for the creators being interested in kind of creating like a multimedia, but I think a lot of people have tried to like do the multimedia thing. So the intention apparently with the second film, the first incarnation, Del Toro called Maelstrom. It was supposed to be part of a set of new media coming out of this world. So there was supposed to be a comic series and an animated series. So they were supposed to expand the world and lay the groundwork for the sequel. So the comic came out. It was truncated. It was supposed to be more issues, and I think it only came down to 4. But yeah, it only came out to 4. But that ended up being Pacific Rim Tales from the Drift. Travis Beacham did write on that one, so I don't know. If you're the kind of person who's like, I want the canonical script, then, you know, there's stuff to go through there. But subsequent comics, Pacific Rim Aftermath and Pacific Rim Amara, were more directly tied to Uprising story and meant to bridge some of that 10-year gap in the world. But the animated series was scrapped, though eventually an animated series called Pacific Rim The Black was later produced by Legendary and Netflix. And I think that came out in 2021.
It's good.
Is it?
Okay, hold on. No, I was just about to say something, and Alice got ahead of me. However bad you think this movie is, Pacific Rim The Black is somehow, I could not finish a single episode.
If Pacific Rim The Black has 1,000 fans, I'm one of them, et cetera, et cetera. It's so bad.
What did you two know specifically about Pacific Rim Uprising before I did this to us as a collective? Start with Alice.
I remember I didn't watch the first one in theaters until a nerd was like, oh, it's so fun and good, you should watch it. And I watched it and I said, yeah, that was good and fun. And then it immediately left my mind. And then sometime in like 2020, somebody was like, did you know they made a sequel to that? And I said, why? And they were like, you shouldn't watch it. It's bad. And so I was like, okay. And then it left my mind. And then you put it on the schedule. So that's my experience with this.
Yeah. Bri?
Yeah, so I saw the first movie in theaters, and hey guys, I also saw this movie in theaters.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Yeah. I remember coming out of that thinking like, okay, I knew going in, everyone didn't like it. I knew that I remember this process, this like brain journey so specifically. I went in knowing that it was probably going to be pretty bad. I came out thinking, yeah, that was pretty bad, but honestly, I had way more fun than I thought. Like, I thought I was in for a bad time. It's a bad movie, but I don't think it's a bad time.
That's a fair point.
And I think that I retain that stance today. I really think that it has there's media we have covered on the show that has myriad problems, and we still kind of come out okay on it. This, I think, has only two bad problems, but they're so bad that it's really hard to get around them. So we'll talk about it. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
All I knew about this was the first trailer, because it had a banger track. It had War Ready by Vince Staples, a specific remix of it, and it did whip pretty egregiously. Unfortunately, I could kind of tell watching the trailer that this was going to have a really different tone from the 2013 movie and the things I kind of liked about that one. And I had been burned a little bit by Star Wars because I love John Boyega as an actor. I really loved his performance in Attack the Block, and then I kind of started following him as an actor. John Boyega has been in a series of just like really painfully mediocre films. And I really enjoyed him in Force Awakens, and then there was a whole bunch of horse shit around him and just like racist Star Wars fans and shit, like typical. But then like he was in this too, and I like John Boyega a lot, and to be fair, I think he gives a hell of a performance in this despite the script. But yeah, I kind of went, I love you, man. I can't follow you here. And so I had never seen this film until I watched it for this episode, until I did this to myself. So, okay. Well, what the hell is this movie actually about? 4 writers got together.
Give us a truncated story here of what happens in Pacific Rim 2 Uprising.
Yeah. All right. 10 years after a war between giant monsters and mechs called Jaegers was ended by a Jaeger pilot's heroic sacrifice to close the extra-dimensional portal that was allowing kaiju to attack the Earth, his fail son is getting by bartering various goods from a partially destroyed city. The real money, though, is in recovering and selling Jaeger parts, but on his last secret mission into the scrapyard, he gets caught up with a teen girl who built her own mini Jaeger. He fails to evade the cops and ends up conscripted with her into the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps, a multinational military organization that maintains Jaegers against the possibility of another kaiju incursion. Their main competitor in the space is Shaw Industries, a company that wants to replace the difficult 2-pilot neural handshake mode of piloting Jaegers with a drone setup. This isn't the fail son Jake Pentecost's first time working for the PPDC, however. It turns out he was previously a ranger, but left the program. Now blackmailed back into it by his adopted sister and protagonist of the previous movie, Mako Mori, he struggles to find his footing with old teammates and the teen girl, Amara, who's been made a cadet under his mentorship. On what should be a low-lift mission in the refitted Jaeger from the first movie, now called the Gypsy Avenger, that was a choice to keep that part of the name, acting as Mako's honor guard. I'm sorry, I was still just floored by that. The PPDC council is attacked by a rogue Jaeger, and Mako is killed. Her final transmission leads Jake to another showdown with the machine called Obsidian Fury, where he discovers it's being piloted by kaiju brain tissue. Meanwhile, Shaw Industries drones have rolled out and become possessed by the kaiju material that made them functional. They attack multiple PPDC bases and knock out almost all the Jaegers, and the dark mastermind behind them, Charlie Day but wearing eyeliner now, reopens portals to the kaiju dimension to allow the monsters back through. It's down to Jake, Amara, the few remaining Jaegers, cadets, and a whole lot of human pluck to thwart an alien plot so monumentally stupid it made me yearn for the lofty narrative prowess of Hideo Kojima. And that's what happened in this movie.
Yeah, that's true.
We're going to head to the break, and then after that, we're going to do the vivisection. Hey, Nico here in the break. Just wanted to let you know that while this is a podcast, and we'll always do our best to describe visuals we're commenting on, we'll also include links to the mechs and images we discuss in the show notes, and post actual photos on our show website. Along with that, make sure to check the show notes for content warnings as appropriate to the episode. That's all for now. Back to the show. Yeah, what was y'all's first impressions? Especially Brian coming back to it, returning champion of Pacific Rim Uprising.
Returning champ.
So like, I gotta say off the right here and now that so much Nico was correct. So much has clicked into place for me in terms of the process of making this movie. Like the extreme like topical feeling anxiety about drone warfare, but in 2018 was such a strange thing to think about. And knowing that this movie started being made in 2015 is like it like opened my eyes to a new dawn. But yeah, so that's just one of the many things this movie is playing with as it kind of opens. I kind of like all of this. Like, I like the idea of a demilitarized like zone that like nations haven't had the resources to like reclaim, and so they just become like fully lawless, like full Escape from New York type shit. Unfortunately, this movie is actually not about that at all.
Yeah.
So you know, I don't know. The impression this movie gives me, honestly, in the intro is cool, which is that we might be doing like Jaeger versus Jaeger. Like people might take Jaegers to fight other Jaegers in like political conflicts, right? Mm-hmm. This might have nothing to do with kaiju. I don't know. We'll get into it, but I thought that was cool, and I think this kind of is a neat promise. Also, Scrapper, is that the name of the little guy, of the little mech? I love him.
Did you get Speedy vibes with the red helmet, or was that just me?
Yes.
Yeah. Very Speedy from Hard Reboot. Yeah.
Well, Alice, what were your first impressions?
I said, wow. I kind of know entirely what this movie is doing with its universe now. And I immediately said, I kind of miss the grimdark parts of Pacific Rim. Like, I get Pacific Rim. So as I've read the comic books and I've seen the show, and this was the one piece of missing media, it kind of does click to me in like, oh, it's kind of struggling with its own tone of what Pacific Rim wants to be, which is this weird, like, dudes being dudes with other dudes, and grim dark, the world is ending, and we're canceling the apocalypse.
That was a powerful Idris Elba impression. It's like he's here with us.
Hey, they didn't need to try and redo that speech. Let's just say it. That was bad. But I guess I liked it, and especially the reveal of them. They're just in a part of California that hasn't been rebuilt, which is really cool. I like that a lot. Like, I don't know. It was just such a weird tone shift, and like I got what it was going for, but in any universe where you have like the post-apocalypse where like most of the world didn't actually get destroyed because it's inland, but like they haven't rebuilt everything, but also they're using Jaegers as cops now. I don't know. It was a weird tone shift.
I really think that follows, though. I really think that's an interesting idea. Like, what happens when you have all of this military industry and now the problem is gone? Well, I mean, I think it's so realistic that humans immediately start pointing them at each other.
I like it, but I also, anytime there's a one world government in something, I have a couple of qualms with it of like, oh, they're always a little evil, but we also have to side with them in the end of it. It's like, okay, all right.
Yeah. I do think this film suffers from sequel sickness in so many different ways. I also think that the number one criticism I hear about Pacific Rim 1 is that it's too fucking dark, and honestly valid. Like,
what do you mean, tonally, or like what's on the screen?
No. Like, visually, the movie is incredibly fucking dark.
Yeah,
like, you can't see shit. So this movie is shot 24-hour daylight. I think they really wanted to get away from that. There is no nighttime in this world.
Oh, well, I could say my first impressions, which I think my negative feelings towards the movie really stem from the fact that the first 15 minutes, probably the first 10, were writing some checks to me that this film had no intention of cashing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
What I've always really loved about Pacific Rim is that it was very much framed as a movie about, or it was framed as being about, like, what is humanity's response to an existential threat? For me, it was very much a climate change movie. Like, everything around Kaiju Blue, everything about, well, we'll just build a big wall and maybe that'll help. Everything about the fact that at that time, the PPDC was, like, completely unfunded and basically functioning out of one hangar with, like, 4 mechs that they brought over from wherever the fuck, you know? There was a real feeling that it's like, these are the few people who are willing to blow up a pipeline. And, like, they're our last line of defense in a world that is going to neoliberal itself to death. And, like, it was very interested in human response and what, like, societal level responses to. I think a lot about the fake kaiju suit late night talk show interview kind of bits. They're very brief in the first movie where it's like, oh, here's how popular culture reacted to it. And then also the Shanghai, I believe it was Shanghai. No, it was Hong Kong. The Hong Kong kaiju, like, processing departments who were turning all that stuff. Like, there was a real feeling of, like, here's how society is reacting.
Where we got kaiju COVID.
But, like, there was a real feeling that this was grounded in the world. And so I was really optimistic when the movie started with, like, here's the fail son. He's fucking around at a half-destroyed mansion with a kaiju skeleton on it. He barters for everything he wants from beer to Oreos. And, like, but his real trade is breaking into scrap yards. And, like, I really, really liked that idea. And especially, like you said, Brian, the idea that, like, there would just be almost like loose Jaeger parts and, like, people making Jaegers and this kind of shit happening. And, like, I, in my mind, immediately thought, I didn't think the film was going to be about this because I had seen the Vince Staples trailer. But I had the thought, it's like, wow, this would be really cool if this was a movie about, like, you know, this government program was a pan-government issue. It probably immediately fell apart the moment the threat was gone. All the funding gets pulled out, but I could see private industries coming in to scoop up the technology. I could see all this different stuff happening. And I like the idea of, like, what happens when a government level initiative is privatized to death or is left to rot and then its remains are picked over, right? Like, I was so excited for that. That's just not what this movie is. And so, like, that first 10 minutes did so much, like, flavor, not as much as the original movie, but it did a lot for the flavor and the world building. And then it just doesn't matter. Because you know what the PPDC is now? I guess it's, like, ultra UN. You know, it's UN if they actually had money and resources. Like,
if they had mechs, like,
they have branded ice cream. These are not the people who were, like, in one, like, hangar in the first movie. You know, like, I don't know. There's and this, to be frank, is a movie that wants a toy line so bad it makes them look stupid. It's just, there are so many Jaegers that are just put on screen for, like, 2 minutes, specifically because you're like, oh, I know somebody was making toys. Like,
yeah.
Sorry, I got depressed.
Well, I don't remember seeing that many, but but I am
when
also,
Jake and Amara
I kinda
first
missed
show up at the hangar, and literally her whole bit is just yelling the names of these different Jaegers and pointing at them.
Well,
like,
those are the same ones that they get into at the end.
Yeah, to be fair, but like
Blue Boy at the beginning, like, for the chase sequence.
Yeah, November Ajax. Again. Yeah, he's gone.
No, well, and I totally agree. The like Hasbro ass, like, lineup sequence of her just, like, shouting the mech names as they walk by is pretty. What do we think of her? Yeah,
that was gonna be my next point. How are we feeling about Amara?
What do I think of her in the beginning or throughout the film?
Give me the rundown.
I think it's cool. I love the concept. Do I find it believable that this little pudding girl is building a mech?
She's not a pudding girl.
Okay, but, like, I can believe in the fiction that maybe she put this together and could move things around. She is so clean for a mechanic. It's a little insulting. And I also think the payoff of her being a scrappy mechanic at the end is they speak it and then we never see it. And it's so annoying to me because it was like, oh, this is her one thing is she is like this like homegrown mechanic girl. And then they're like, we have to refit all of these mechs at the end. And also then Shao Industries showed up with all the cheap labor from China. So we don't get to see her like bolting anything on. There's no montage of them like putting a new arm on a mech. Like that's where I thought it would pay off. But also, her as a cadet, she is suddenly really okay with being a cop. Like immediately, like, yeah, I want to be an official cop, even though I'm like pissed that they took my own mech from me. She's like, I'm in. And suddenly I have a rivalry with the Russian girl, who is obviously the metaphor for the Russian girl from the first movie. Are they the daughter? We never find out. Anyway, I think there's parts of her that are cool. I don't think it sells the metaphor of her as John Boyega's daughter figure. Like the Pentecost and Mako in the first movie. They're trying to do that
that's
again.
interesting, yeah.
But it doesn't really work in any point with her. But not for her lack of trying. The actor is doing what she can, and I really like her acting with what she has.
And this was her first movie. This was her debut. So I think that she did really well for what that was. I don't have her name off the top of my head, but she did well.
What about you guys? What did you think of our little girl?
I immediately, so like I said, like the first couple minutes set a tone, and it's John Boyega heavy, and he's doing his thing.
The actress's name is Kaylee Spaney, by the way.
Okay,
Spaney.
John Boyega's doing his thing, right? And then the moment he gets into the hangar and the girl whips off her hood, and it's little white brunette girl, number 5. I mean, like I said, the actress did well, but like, she immediately is a specific type of like young adult heroine. And it just, for me, deflated everything that was happening in the beginning of this movie. And then throughout, like, her role is to be the young adult heroine. And it's like her and John Boyega's character in the beginning and throughout much of this, though not at the end when he gets copified, like, they don't seem like they're from the same world, which is weird because arguably she should be even deeper in this world because she's not living in a half-destroyed mansion. Like, yeah, like what you said specifically about her not being grimy, they put a lot of effort into making the objects grimy, but the actors aren't super grimy, and I could almost buy it with John Boyega's character because, like, clearly he pays attention to his hair, his look, like...
Yep.
He spends a lot of time at a pool, you know, that'll take some grime off you, but, she just looks immaculate. And then from after we get out of the scrapyard on, so much of this stuff looks immaculate, especially anything associated with the PPDC, which is just totally different from the vibe in the first movie. And it really just, I don't know, like you said, it's like, I don't know that I really feel like I want to root for the PPDC. They feel like cops and also like so well funded. They're not really an underdog or anything, you know? But yeah, I don't know. I kind of, like, the moment she entered the film, my heart kind of sank just because I was like, okay, I see where we're going now.
I mean, it was a cool build up to it. I liked where they went with her. It's okay. But yeah, just the payoff with her character arc is not really there, in my opinion.
And I thought that was interesting what you said, Alice, the idea that that could be trying to echo what was going on with Stacker Pentecost and Mako Mori in the first film, where... You know, like, Mako wanted to prove herself, and Stacker was the consummate pilot, but, like, he had specific reservations about her getting involved, and, like, there could have been an interesting narrative here about Jake being a person who didn't want to get involved with this program, and who literally actively left it to try to live the life that Amara had been living, and then if Amara had also been reticent instead of immediately jumping on board, you know... then I think it could have been interesting about having to make the person who didn't want to be here sell why this is probably the best option for her. I think that might have been interesting, but that's just, like, not what we get. So.
Yeah, I love the story beat we see in media sometimes of, like, the self-trained, not from the cadet school being thrown into the cadet school, and they have a different way of doing things. And the fact that she is just immediately another cadet and we never explore that is very weak, in my opinion.
And I think there could have been an interesting tension because John Boyega, like, adopted her lifestyle. He was raised by Stacker Pentecost. He was raised in this program. He was raised as a ranger. And then he flunked out, basically, trying to do some stunts. And, like, then he went and decided to live kind of the street rat lifestyle, but in luxury, right? I think it could have been really interesting if there was actually a tension between like his place in society where he decided to go, you know, because he had options, and then her actually like literally being an orphan, refugee, abandoned in the scrapyard kind of energy. But like they don't do anything with that potential like almost like class tension.
The only other one I want to kind of point out before like I love the scrapyard. I love the concept of a Jaeger scrapyard, like a shipbreaking yard, but for Jaegers. I just think that that's pretty cool. Of like, well, this one's fucked, but we need to collect what we can. I don't know. I think that's a pretty neat concept.
Alice, you probably know a little bit about this. Decommissioning battleships, where it's like you can't actually afford. Yeah, you can't actually afford to maintain this, even though it's like has historical value or like could be a useful ship. So you have to go break it down. I could see that being really interesting, especially because, as we know, at least a couple of those Jaegers had nuclear cores. So, like, that could have been a really interesting element to this. Like, we can't afford to maintain this nuclear facility. So...
I did love the scene where he is meeting the buyers inside of the Jaeger that's being scrapped. And so they're in this, like, really cool set that's, like, a Jaeger leg internal that they're walking through. And I don't know. I had some brief hope in that moment of what this movie would be, and then it was just Star Wars Episode 7.
Well, Bri, what did you think of Amara?
I think that she's basically, the movie doesn't know what to do with her and ends up doing really nothing with her. I think that, yeah, speaking of sequel syndrome, like, this movie has such a crisis as to what it wants to be about in terms of character. Because, yeah, you have a really weak plot line of, like, Amara and her dad, which, Nico, I was going to say this earlier, but I think Amara is fully an Ellie, and I think that's going to really just not hit with a lot of people. And so, like, Ellie being, like, Ellie from The Last of Us. So there's, like, a weaker version of that story, which some people already found to be kind of weak and isn't going to hit for them. And I also think that, is my brain broken? Or when we get her tragic backstory, is that not like full on physical comedy? The way her dad is crushed to death.
So hard.
Like,
oh my God. I knew it was coming. Okay, we all knew what happened without them playing the entire fucking scene, right? We get it.
We didn't need that. Yeah, I don't think we needed that at all.
They were literally beat for beat trying to echo what they did in the first movie with Mako Mori, where she follows the rabbit and Raleigh sees like her in the Onibaba attack and like her finding her shoe. But like, I think the tonal thing is such an interesting piece, right? Because there's such a difference in the writing of the first film and the second film. Because the first film was like almost painfully sincere. I feel like it turned some people off because like it opens with a monologue about how like when you're in a giant robot, you can fight a hurricane. And then it just kind of goes from there in terms of sincerity. Like, Stacker Pentecost's whole cancel the apocalypse speech doesn't feel corny and overblown because, like, you started with basically a spoken poem that they wrote and, like, put in it. And, like, it kind of follows. But in this movie, like, there's such a switch off between, like, grimness and then like these comedy beats that sometimes when something is supposed to be sincerely grim, you can't read it correctly. And then it is just left for you to look at what's on the screen, which looks funny. I think the worst example of this is Suresh. If y'all remember Cadet Suresh, he's the one whose dad is a plastic surgeon. And the whole movie is that he doesn't want to be a boob guy. He wants to pilot a Jaeger. And then he gets killed in this movie. And all we see is his grisly burnt arm. And that's his character.
This movie goes so far out of its way to not show death on screen and people escaping at the last moment that I'm like, this is rated T for teen at this point.
And then, like I said, and then you see Suresh's charred arm and you expect him to sit up because nothing else has had stakes in this movie. And it's like, no, we made fun of this kid all movie and now he's dead.
So I'm going to ask a question as somebody from the middle of the country who doesn't see coasts. So this is kind of for those of you who've seen coasts, and I have touched the oceans, both of them. I know, don't be jealous. How do people keep getting snuck up on by kaiju?
Okay, I think that shit works.
Ocean big.
I don't know. What do you mean by this in terms of, because they don't sneak up on them from the ocean.
So the kaiju, they're on the pier. We're going into the deep dark backstory of Amara because I have to talk about the specific scene.
Yeah.
So they're on a pier in like California.
How are
and
you at Santa
suddenly,
Monica Pier?
She's with her family, and she's wandered off from her family, and suddenly a kaiju steps up out of the water right by the pier. No one noticed this coming up?
Yeah. That makes, it's
Anyway,
dumb.
the joke is they're like trying to get her to jump to come over, and then bam, smash!
Yeah.
Family dead.
I don't think we needed this. I think that the movie's attention is divided between Jake's relationship with Amara, which I think is the more fertile ground for like storytelling, and his relationship with Scott Eastwood, which is fucking nothing and is all over the place in and of itself.
I love them.
I don't know.
Did you catch the whole thing where it's like brief? Okay, Jake is bisexual, but don't worry, we're still gonna do a het romance weird conflict that isn't anything.
Yes, it is. They're a triangle.
No, they're not.
We are established at the end when she kisses both of them. They're a triangle.
No, they're not. They're trying to be a triangle, but the movie does not put them in triangle shape at all.
It does not have the courage of its convictions. John Boyega, they were like, we trust him. He's brave enough to go on screen and say that a man is sexy. I almost said Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood, we don't trust that motherfucker to say. No, Scott Eastwood, we don't trust him to say that. The whole movie, he's just like, hell yeah, brother.
I like how he's in Top Gun. Nobody else is in Top Gun, but he's in Top Gun.
A couple of the cadets are also in Top Gun, but mostly it's him.
I'm gonna say it. The Top Gun subplot is my favorite part of this movie,
of course
and I want Pacific Rim Maverick. That's all I want.
That's what this movie was trying to be. Okay, but literally, okay, I have another production fun fact. So the original effects, dark as they were done by Industrial Light and Magic. So that's the kind of the Lucasfilm company that spun off of them. The effects in this movie were done by about 4 different companies. And I think Weta Workshop also did some of the costuming. But like specifically the priority was stated that like in the first movie, the Jaegers looked more like tanks. And the most non-tank looking one was probably Gypsy Danger. And in this movie, they wanted them to look more like fighter pilots and be more differently colored to make them distinct. They wanted them to look like fighter jets, rather. So I think that informs a lot of the visual styling that we're going to see. And also, I do feel like that brings some Top Gun energy. I feel like the fact that their heads were in that place, like, yeah.
Yeah, as you know, every military lets all the pilots paint their planes in bright orange, a color that is known to be great for a fighter jet.
Well, I mean, if you had read the Pacific Rim novelization, you would know that kaiju are colorblind, so it doesn't really matter. No, you believed me. No, that's not true.
No, I was going to be like, but also, like, the unspoken thing here is that they're also building these to oppress the population, and, you know...
Yeah.
Okay. We can't get into
no, but I mean, that's a plot thread that gets dropped, right? Because, like, in the beginning of the movie, it seems like unregistered Jaegers are a big problem. And, like, they are later in the movie with Obsidian Fury. A fucking Jaeger that no one names until John Boyega just says Obsidian Fury. And we're all like, who the fuck named this
I love when they dropped the name, and we're all like, the who?
But, like, it seemed like it was going to be a way bigger deal that, like, the main role of Jaegers now is to police other Jaegers, and then that just, like, doesn't come up after November Ajax does the chase sequence. So...
Yeah, I think that is really lame. I think the movie should have been completely about that.
That's what I thought it was going to be about, and I was like, this is a cool thread.
I think all of the kaiju stuff in this movie sucks.
Why did it need kaiju again? I think the fun part of this space is a world post-kaiju, but with Jaegers, is such a cool concept.
I do like the idea, like, if we're following on the idea of, like, loose nukes, I like the idea that, like, I almost like what they did with Newt in this movie. I do like the idea that there is potential in kaiju material that's been cloned that could be used for ill, but I don't think we needed the whole precursor reopening the breach plot line. They just wanted big monsters.
Should we, like, move?
Yeah, we should move with a certain swiftness. Jake and Amara get conscripted by the PPDC. Mako Mori returns sans blue hair, but plus styling. I will say her costumes in this look so good. For all that she's in this movie for 10 minutes before they absolutely murder my girl, she looked good as hell. she was serving?
This is one of the movie's biggest fucking problems, is what it does to Mako.
And there's another production fact that's interesting here. So Mako and Raleigh obviously were the main characters of the first movie. So Charlie Hunnam, who played Raleigh, wanted to be in this movie and was interested in this movie. And Guillermo del Toro had stated that earlier versions of the script centered more following their story, like continuing that. Unfortunately, there was a scheduling conflict between him and another film that he was working on. So he is not appearing in this film at all. And then it was like they didn't really know what to do with Mako Mori without him. And so she briefly is like the commissioner of the PPDC and then is killed. So that's kind of the nod to the last movie that we get.
Okay, I'm gonna do this quick, but I need to talk about it. So there's something that happens in blockbuster productions, especially in this era, and I call it Chinese money. And I want to say this in the nicest way possible, which is when you can very much see it in a lot of films of this era, and less so now, where a lot of money came from a Chinese production company, and it was moved to Chinese sets. Mm-hmm. And there is a specific feeling of a Chinese-funded film where I'm not saying the lady from Shaw Industries is a bad actress. I'm sure she's great, but it seems like she was put in there for her connection to the producer, because you see that a lot in this era of films where they get the production money and they say, you have to have these actors in it. And then you also, and this is just like a background thing, in any of these films, The Great Wall, this, other ones, there's so much going on in the background and yet nothing at all. There are so many extras in the background of all of these scenes at the Shatterdomes, where you just have people walking around pointing at things. There's hundreds of them. There's all of this like production and set design. The CGI is so over the top and everything is overdone for a backdrop of pretty much two people talking. And all of these films have this problem where it's like there is so much going on, but it's still a core cast. They never interact with any of these background people. They're just there doing things. And I think it kind of detracts from a film because when you have traditional background actors and set design, it all informs a worldview and a setting. So the PPDC is somewhat underfunded and they're looking to move towards the private industry. And so there's like hundreds of mechanics around for these 5 mechs that are just on standby. And it just feels so lifeless, but full of life. And I would say that about every scene. Like, Every scene with Shaw Industries, there's one character we interact with, and then like one that gets like Charlie Day is mean to sometimes. And that's it for Shaw Industries. And it just feels so lifeless at this like huge major plot point, and these huge set designs have so little life to them. And especially knowing that all of the cadets are, except for one, not Chinese. And I know they're like, oh, they're all local hires and everything. This is a multinational military organization. They would move people between bases. This is standard operating procedure for any, military alliance, is you have people there who speak the tongue, who are interacting with each other. And so it just felt like that was the death knell for me of this setting for me, is I was like, oh, I loved The Great Wall starring Matt Damon that just had like hundreds of people in the background doing stuff that didn't affect the plot. And that's my thought on it, and you see it a lot in these films. It's not so much now, but this is a very specific era where that was happening.
I think that's interesting. I also think that it brings up something that may be conjecture, and maybe this is something we don't leave in the final product, but it makes me think about Chinese funded productions like The Great Wall and like Ghost in the Shell, who are going to put non-Asian people on like center roles to appeal to Asian countries who are like racist with each other. So, famously, like the interaction between Chinese cinema and having Japanese characters and the other way around is really, really fraught. There's a lot going on there. And so to have this situation where we're moving to Chinese sets and a Chinese production company, and all of a sudden we kill the Japanese main character so that the Chinese main character can do all of the things that character probably would have done if she had lived. Like the Shao Industries woman gets to pilot, she gets to save the day at the end. And I like this lady, to be clear. I think it's cool how it sets her up as like a cold villain, and then it turns out she actually does want to do the right thing. She was just fooled. Yeah. I like that plot line. But it's something to think about when you think about how this production went from not something that was centralized in that politic to something that very, very much is.
Yeah, I don't have any background on that, but I did find out that the actress Jing Chen, she was pretty popular. She's been in a number of different productions, obviously within China, a number of different long-term TV shows and things like that. She was in The Great Wall. She was also in Kong Skull Island. And so like there's some different stuff that she's been in specifically associated with Legendary, it does seem like. But it also seems like she's a pretty popular actress. So that's an interesting moment of appeal to like, you know, the Chinese audience and stuff. And yeah. I see what y'all mean. I'm hesitant to say these kind of things because I think there's a lot of xenophobia in the air in America right now. So, like, I'm really hesitant to kind of comment on any of this. But there was definitely an interesting, almost like bait and switch. Because, like, in American movies, we are used to, like, the Chinese company, especially the Chinese company that uses heavy automation, being the villain. And then, like, she's set up as the villain. Her character, Li Wen, is set up as the villain. And a lot of the shit that happens is because of this company, to be fair. But then also they have this like weightless, almost like redemption in the sense of like, oh, she was deceived by her head scientist and the evil aliens. Yeah,
and she gets to come in and do a cool thing at the end and everything.
Yeah.
I do have to now talk about, I'm so sorry, we have to talk about the fucking scientists. So
the scientists?
Yeah, so here's my motherfucking tight tan on Newt Geisler and Herman Gottlieb. 2013 Tumblr was annihilated by these men.
Yes. They're gay, though.
Yeah, like, well, but like 2013 Tumblr, like a significant amount of the fan production around Pacific Rim was literally just focused on the interplay of Charlie Day and, oh God, I forget the name of the other actor who plays, because I always know him as Owen from Torchwood, which is just, that is a deep cut for those who are interested.
He's also in House of the Dragon, I think, lately. I'm almost sure of that.
I'm like gonna lose my mind. Bern Gorman, that's his name. So the interplay between Charlie Day and Bern Gorman was like a big part of the appeal in the original movie. Charlie Day's character Newt is very much like your enthusiastic biologist. He really likes the kaiju. For me, he always hit the note of like shark researcher. Like, yes. There's something that is so feared in society, and yet, like, the biologists who are interested in them, or like a bacterial researcher who, like, studies the plague or whatever, like, there's something that scares people that's organic, and he's really into it. So he kind of hit that note, whereas his counterpart, Bern Gorman, playing Herman Gottlieb, was, like, your pure math guy. He was your very much German-inflected, like, just the facts, ma'am kind of guy. And so their kind of odd couple interplay was a big draw in the first movie, which makes sense to me that like if they couldn't get the leads of the first movie, they're like, we got to grab something that has big audience appeal. Let's bring these two back. And I know I say this a lot, but could gay sex have saved him?
Well, like so to get us here in the plot, like, yeah. What we've been talking about is basically there's a conference where the AI Hong Kong industry is doing a performance or a test run of their AI engine, and it's cool and everything.
Well, it's supposed to be a drone that allows pilots to pilot remotely.
Right. Yeah. And then the rogue Giger shows up, Mako dies, blah, 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 blah. This whole thing...
Fly the helicopter away from the giant enemy Jaeger. Just a pro tip, guys.
What the fuck?
Or land. You can just land and
Landing
get out.
Would have been probably the one thing to do. Because apparently there are just rooftops where you're completely safe no matter what. As we see Charlie Day residing on one at the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Charlie Day is with, what is it?
Shao Industries.
Shao Industries. Charlie Day is with Shao Industries. And so Gottlieb is still with the PPDC. And so they meet up again. And they have the most divorced husband's energy I have ever fucking seen in my life.
They really do. And you know, Charlie Day got the bulk of the estate in the divorce. Like, Burn Gorman didn't want to fight him.
Yeah. And so, like, immediately something's off with Charlie Day. They made him shave. Huge mistake.
Glasses are gone. They've got contacts on him, but I guess to replicate his dark glasses in the original, they do have this man in eyeliner.
And they also give him douchebag sunglasses that he does wear inside for most of, like, the...
He's Temu Tony Stark in this movie.
He's Temu Tony Stark for sure.
Well, who he's actually trying to ape, which I think could almost be interesting, is from the first movie, who the fuck is it who does the Fallout intros?
War.
The guy. Ron Perlman.
He's
doing Ron Perlman as Hannibal Chow. Like his loud prints and his kind of brocade suits and the sunglasses. Like he's clearly kind of aping that character in a way that could almost be interesting, but he really just comes off as great value Tony Stark. So,
you know, there's other things Ron Perlman has been in, right? That you could have
he's
pulled
only
from.
been in the Fallout monologues and Hellboy.
Acclaimed film actor Ron Perlman. You know the voice of the Fallout intro. Anyway.
But yeah, so Herman and Newt meet back up, and yeah, there is very clearly a drug metaphor. They're united by the fact that they both had the experience of drifting with a kaiju brain. They did that in the first movie. Herman still has nightmares about it, apparently, and about what he saw, which was, to be fair, a lot of like body horror stuff. A lot of the stuff going on the other side of the breach was like weird, freaky alien shit. Charlie Day's character has retained a kaiju brain that he regularly hooks up with in a deeply eroticized thing.
Hey, what's its name?
Huh? Oh,
what's his wife's name?
Yes, how could I have forgotten the name of this beautiful kaiju brain who he presents as his wife? Alice? Now, how did you land this role, Alice?
Well, it was really hard because when they said, you're going to be a brain in a jar, I said, now how am I going to bring this to screen properly? And no, I was personally offended by this choice. Because also, it's just a Honeymooners reference. I get it. I get what we're doing here.
I didn't. So I expected it to almost be like an AI, and then what it was, I was like, oh God. Yeah.
I want to shout out something. We don't have to talk about this stuff too much because like what happens here is like an action sequence that goes on too long and is not super great. I want to shout out one thing about it though, which is that at the very beginning when Obsidian Fury like breaches and like shows up at the building and starts firing missiles at them, Jake is standing in front of the building where the simulation is taking place and dodges a missile so that it hits the building. This never comes up again.
So funny.
You're here to protect this. What are you doing?
It is.
Hits their headquarters. Honestly, seemed like an inside job.
This whole movie doesn't know what it wants to do with civilians.
Jaeger missiles can't melt steel beams.
It doesn't know what it wants to do with civilians. I love the best line in this movie is at the end sequence when we've watched civilians die for like 20 minutes. Someone says, we've evacuated all the civilians. Except for the million people that just died.
There's literally a scene where they're running to one of the shelters and the door closes in front of like 10 of them and then they're crushed with rubble.
I know. It's absolutely fucking baffling. And what really got me, again, like, it doesn't have to be the first movie, but there are elements it brings in that were directly addressed in the first movie that it's just like, okay, we're going to handwave this.
This is the sequel sickness.
The whole thing with public shelters is a lot of them were built on the cheap. That's a whole plot element in Pacific Rim 1. And the thing is, the threat of the kaiju is supposed to be gone. Why would they have invested in better shelters at this point that could actually save everyone? Like,
I feel like that can be explained with socioeconomics of the two areas.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think not to get lost in the weeds. I think Hong Kong is in a very different political and industrial and infrastructural state than Tokyo is. But
I know, but this is still
doesn't
ridiculous. It's still ridiculous. It's not like Japan has managed every natural disaster perfectly. So
we're in the weeds on the fact that this movie goes so far to have background actors in so many places and yet really does not want you to ever see anybody die from anything that's happening.
Except randomly when it does, which just, anyway. They get conscripted by the PPDC. They go through training. There's the attack in Sydney where Mako Mori dies. She was trying to send a final message, and what it was that she had identified the power core tech in this rogue Jaeger as coming from a specific island off of Russia.
Yes.
They go there, and there's a fight that happens on a frozen lake.
I like this.
It was pretty good, yeah. I think it went on a little long, but...
Who built
My
it?
favorite thing... Oh, who built it? I don't know.
Who built it?
Shao?
Yeah,
I don't
Shao.
know.
Shao built it. Or it was built using Shao parts, because that's what Amara figures out later by cutting a cable.
It has Shao
and-
parts on the inside.
Yeah,
Where was
but-
the rest of it from?
It's kaiju.
Okay.
Yeah. We're
No,
getting
there's
there,
no
but yeah.
answer. And that's what makes me
Oh.
mad.
I thought you were
yeah.
quizzing me. Okay, sorry.
No, I wasn't leading up to anything. I was legitimately asking, hey guys, who built this fucking badass Jaeger that can just destroy shit left and right?
Yeah, it's got 2 electric swords, whereas Gypsy Danger only has 1 electric sword. I'm like you, but stronger.
How do we feel about Gypsy Avenger also, since we're talking about it?
I think
it's
it's
the same thing.
I think it's a cool rebuild. I love when a mecha media takes the existing mech from the old one and gives it slight upgrades. And I think over the course of the movie, I like how it gets a little more, oomph. Like, it eventually has 2 sword.
Mm-hmm.
We show character growth of this mech.
Character growth.
I'm sad that they didn't come up with a whole new one for these 2 people. Like, I would have loved if John Boyega and his boyfriend had a mech that they were really attuned with that we learned about.
And John
But-
Boyega lost at the divorce.
Yeah, John Boyega lost in the divorce.
I don't know why in 2018 we're still calling it that, but I think it's pretty, it's mid. I would say it's firmly mid for me.
And I mean, it's worth addressing here. So Gypsy Danger and Gypsy Avenger were named after the Gypsy engine, which is spelled Gipsy.
Yeah,
But it sounds like the slur for Romani
Hey,
people.
is the Gypsy engine a real thing that has to have that name, or is that a fake thing that they made up for this universe?
I don't
Exactly.
know. I don't remember.
It's
Anyway.
a fake thing made up for this universe.
Yeah, they didn't need this. They could have named it anything, and they fucking named it this, and then they kept that part of the name. Anyway.
Obsidian Fury fucking owns. Oh, I love a black mech with red and orange. Oh.
I think Obsidian Fury looks boring. But anyway, go on, sorry.
I wish there was more external evidence of what we find out about its internals. I will say that. Like, I would have really appreciated if there was some confusion. Like, I understand why they would initially be like, oh, this is just a rogue Jaeger, but I would have really loved if there was some confusion about, no, there's some other weird fucked up shit happening here. Because the only thing we get is later, there's the fight on the frozen lake. I did like some of the tactics that were used here and how the ice and water were used. I mean, it's obviously...
The crevice tackle? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Can I quickly shout out one of the best lines from this fight, which is when Jake says, should we do our thing from, the old days or whatever? And they do their thing from the old days, and their thing from the old days is something that only works on a frozen lake where they, like, slide underneath it.
No. I think Jake just knows how to drift a Jaeger. Like, you gotta believe in it.
Well, they all know how to drift. I think that's kind of established.
Oh, I can't talk about drifting in this movie. Anyway, hey, it turns out you could just do it with anyone if you believe in it's dire enough. You don't even need to show it on screen after you get the initial parts done. Anyway.
No, I love this fight. I think it's very earned them beating Obsidian. Like, the cutting of the breaking through the ice and then pulling Obsidian down is so good.
A lot of it is really, really neat.
I think it's an interesting nod to the underwater stuff that happened in the first one, because initially you're like, should these be able to go underwater? Yeah, they've been underwater before then.
I would assume they have to fight in the Pacific, so...
Yeah, well, yeah. But, no, and at the end of this battle, one, they rip out its heart in a specific way, which is very funny. But then they rip off the faceplate. I love how they're like, exit the con pod now, and then they fully do a you're resisting arrest and like brutally rip the faceplate. If there were people in there, they were dead. They would just be dead. But they rip the faceplate off and they find it is being piloted by kaiju tissue.
A kaiju
and it's
brain.
like dun dun dun. Yeah.
A rear brain of a kaiju has been implanted.
Yeah,
and then we get our first shot of the most blatant Evangelion reference ever, which is the mass-produced white Jaegers.
Yeah.
Okay, can we all scream out, oh my god, the mass production Evas are back?
Yeah.
I was losing my shit at this. This is my exact shit. I love a mass-produced unit, and it only gets better. This is the plot I loved. If this was the whole movie, I would be so fucking in.
So yeah, I mean, part of the reason Mako Mori had to die is because she was opposing the deployment of these drone Jaegers from Shao Industries. With her death and the threat of more rogue Jaegers and the need for faster response times, the drones get deployed. Unfortunately, we've just discovered that one Jaeger is piloted by kaiju material. Uh-oh, kaiju material is in these two. And they are like in the middle of being Amazon drop delivered, and they freak out. They go beast mode.
I do love that they're all delivered on the same day, which good job for everybody.
Logistics.
Amazing logistics. And that they don't wait more than 2 seconds before turning evil.
Yeah, they're not even on the ground yet. They turn evil in midair.
Immediately during the deployment. Guys, I'm obsessed with what happens to these things.
Yeah.
It looks really cool. This is the peak. This is like the moment where the movie is like, hold on, this could be good. And then this too also gets thrown away.
Yeah. Well, I will say, we glossed over it real quick. I did like the interior scene where Amara and the cadets go to look inside Obsidian Fury, and they find that not only is there a kaiju brain piloting it, kaiju muscle tissue has been woven into its limbs, and they're like, wow, that's how it could move like that. Now, I wish at any point I had noticed it moving cooler than anything else. But
it didn't move like anything,
Yeah, it didn't move like anything, but there's a moment where Amara cuts into one of the cables and causes an issue with another cadet because apparently they have acid blood like the alien. But she finds out a very crucial issue, which is that the coiling is done exactly the same way as Shao Industries. So if it was not made by Shao, it was made with Shao parts. So I did like that interior scene. I liked the part in the first movie where they went inside the kaiju. I thought this was also a good nod to that.
A little too Goonies for me.
It was a little Goonies. Everything with the cadets is just frustrating because I don't feel like any of those characters are well drawn. And I want to say one thing that I really felt missing from this movie. There's those 4 Jaegers and eventually all the cadets are piloting them. The original pilots, we just don't meet. Like the original pilots of those Jaegers, part of the thing in the first movie, the pilots were so distinctive and they all had distinctive looks and personalities. In this one, those pilots don't matter. You're supposed to care about the cadets, and the cadets are just like half-formed characters.
The cadets are Russian, Chinese, Indian, and I'm sure the others have personalities, but
those aren't personalities, those are nationalities.
What are you talking about? The Russian girls are angry all the time.
Diversity win.
I actually really like the Russian one. That actress is kind of doing it. By the way, that's Shin Hati from the Ahsoka show. She's one of the freaky orange lightsaber people. She's pretty cool in that too. I don't think that they are served very well. I would have loved if this movie was 3 different movies all realized into their own thing. Because I love the cadets stuff. And I also love the triple pilot robot. It makes no sense that these people who hated each other yesterday can drift now.
Yeah, no,
but
there's
anyway,
absolutely no reason. Like, one of the things I love, there is a triple pilot configuration in the first movie. Those are brothers. They're twins. And so I like that that's like
triplets?
Triplets. But like those are the only people who could realistically pilot that one. In this movie, we got a 3 Jaeger too. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how these people know each other.
Yeah.
Look, I said at the beginning, I'm gonna say it again. This would have been served as an HBO miniseries.
Yeah.
Because you could have breathed out these plot lines a lot more. But instead we get a really cool 5-minute sequence of these fucking feral ass drone Jaegers.
They tear shit up.
It is a really cool effect. It does evoke Evangelion with the fact that they're like shelled out. They're like these white shelled drones. And then when they go kaiju, the kaiju pieces with the luminescent blood burst out of them. And so there's this organic bursting out of the mechanized look, which is really cool. I do think it's a really cool design. And I do think it is wildly underused.
Do you know what it evokes for me, their design? Elites from Halo. In their movements, their body, the like curved armor, they look like elites from Halo who have been taken over by the Flood.
Yeah, it was cool design, but the only reason they exist is so that they can all use their chest laser beams to walk into the ocean and open new breaches to let kaiju in.
This was so dumb. This was my chest fell. I was like, oh.
Yeah, and part of what's going on during this scene, Herman Gottlieb has run to his husband to be like, hey, your Chinese boss lady is evil. You should have known this because she was kind of cold to you and she's a woman. You should leave her, King. And then, gets the dun-dun-dun twist. It's like, actually, I have been taken over by the precursors. Anytime there's like an alien super race, like I just like don't care. The kaiju were way more interesting to me when they were wild animals. Like I like the idea that they were weird freaks.
I like weird alien stuff. I think that Charlie Day does a good job acting this. I also think that I totally agree with you about the kaiju though. I think that this whole thing about like we need a quote unquote better reason for them to have been doing the thing from the first movie, and their better reason is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard, is like so.
Hey guys, it's time for me to talk to you again about volatile liquid rocket fuels.
This comes up a lot on this podcast for some reason.
You wouldn't believe it, but it's very relevant. No, an early plot point that we glossed over is that Herman, who was a mathematician but is now a rocket scientist, I think that's a pretty lateral shift. He has decided that to improve response times with the Jaegers, like all they need to do is put rocket packs on them. And then they can kind of blast off wherever they need to go. They don't need to be dropped by helicopter. How's he going to do this considering how much Jaegers weigh? Well, you see, kaiju blood is actually really reactive when it mixes with certain rare earth minerals. And so he's just going to turn kaiju blood into volatile liquid rocket fuel. This is important because later we find out the whole thing the kaiju wanted to do was turn their own blood into volatile liquid rocket fuel, detonate the Pacific Rim volcanoes, and turn the world into Ash Hell World because that's how the aliens want it.
This is a Promare level exposition dump at lightning speed that's just so out of nowhere and affects the way the whole world works for no reason.
And the movie isn't even gay enough to justify it. John Boyega and Charlie Day and Bern Gorman are out here trying, but the movie does not.
If Scott Eastwood and John Boyega had kissed at the end in order to save each other, this would be a 10 out of 10 movie.
Yeah. That's all we needed.
Okay. I have a question about this plot. So we establish in this movie that all you need to open up a portal to the other side is just dig a hole.
Chest lasers,
yeah. Okay. There's also cultists who love the kaiju and want to be on their side that aren't Charlie Day.
Once.
Like, there could have been a plot with like, oh, we're gonna WMD the ocean floor to let the kaiju in. Like, this just seems like so much. Like, Charlie Day could have played this a little bit slower, right?
Well, it's not even his fault. That comes down to the script for me.
I think we're supposed to understand there's some sort of something with the laser beams that have to do with the fact that they're kaiju laser beams that's able to, like, you couldn't just have a drill. Like, you'd have to use the kaiju shit for some reason. The movie's not doing any of this lifting. It's me. I'm doing it, but that's what I think is supposed to be understood.
Well, it was supposed to be, in the first movie, it was supposed to be an interdimensional portal that could be destroyed. That was the whole thing. That's why Stacker Pentecost died. The whole thing is that it was destroyed. But apparently all you need to do is have kaiju get together with their laser beams, which begs the question, why did every time kaiju came on land, did they not immediately try to use a laser beam to create more holes?
Yeah. Well, and none of this really matters. I just want to say that this was a huge mistake to go in this direction with this.
Yeah. But it is attempting to explain the first movie, which is a move I never like in a sequel.
Exactly.
Don't tell me what the first movie was actually about, especially when the writer's room and the directing, all of it's different. The production, everything is different. Like, don't try to explain that to me. But the whole thing is, Newt... 3 kaiju got out of the holes before they closed them with the power of...
Where were those 3 holes? Quick, guys.
One was China, one was Korea, one was Russia? Philippines, okay. Damn, R.I.P.
This doesn't matter either, but okay.
R.I.P. to my Filipino listeners. I think y'all could have taken it. I think y'all could have done it.
Now, what do these kaiju want to do?
Well, To be fair, I think they initially individually want to throw themselves into Mount Fuji to detonate the Pacific Rim, but Newt Geisler has some plans. They slaughtered my boy. They killed my boy.
There are so many other volcanoes, by the way. That's it. I just want to say there are so many other volcanoes closer to where than they were.
I want to talk to Alice about strategy, about military strategy.
Yes.
Okay.
And about how
I'll continue having a breakdown about Newt quietly.
Yes. When you're approaching an objective from 3 different directions, I think that maybe the last thing you want to do is merge all into one direction and attack it with one unit that you've randomly just fused together instead of from 3 directions, especially since your enemy is airdropping all 3 of their units into one spot that's nowhere near the objective.
Yeah,
isn't that something you'd want to think about?
The weird part about it is they're attacking a mountain, and they really only need one of them to drop into it to explode it with their blood. And they all walk. They meet up outside of Tokyo to march in. What are
This is a friend group.
Terrible on the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps. Their entire policy, like, what are we doing? Also, hey guys, they all come from one Shatter Dome. Are we to presume every single other one failed to defeat or defend?
Yes. Literally, yes. They say that in the movie. The Shatter Dome's closest to where these kaiju emerged were all defeated.
Closest to. Now, this is a very important thing that I want to point out. They have time to retrofit these mechs and airlift them because these kaiju have to go from fucking Korea and China
They have time to retrofit them and then attach experimental rockets full of volatile liquid rocket fuel.
Sorry, I forgot that entire... Okay. But Japan doesn't have a Shatter Dome?
No, there are Shatter Domes all over. There are Peruvian Shatter Domes. Like,
It's fine.
But everybody got owned because these are the specialist babies.
This is specialist babies. Nico, I want you to have a breakdown on air about how the actually the strongest psychic thing the precursors
Keep going.
They're trying to take Brian over.
Keep going. Brian, are they in you?
The most upsetting attack the precursors can make is the Compet brain laser that turns you into an evil straight man.
It's so true. It's so true and so horrible what they do to my boy. So I've already said one of the things I liked about Newt as a character is he seems like a scientist who studies something scary, who has a genuine passion for it. And in this movie, it posits that you shouldn't trust scientists who study scary things because they'll get taken over by the scary things and Big Scary will use them.
Noted that all shark researchers are being like, we should make canals that go farther inland. Not for the sharks, guys.
Clearly, all shark researchers are trying to get sharks closer to your house. All biological warfare researchers are trying to make the Plague 2. This time, it's better.
A hard stance of OSG is that Sharknado is a propaganda film.
I'm glad we're finally saying it.
No, I just that hit me wrong. And then, like I said, Charlie Day is doing the damn thing. He's vamping, he's chewing scenery.
Sure
like
is
he's
evil.
He's got the eyeliner on, like he's living. Unfortunately,
I will say, hey, Charlie Day, you can act as another character sometimes. You don't have to just be Charlie Day.
But I mean, I think that's why he was hired for the original role, and then they were like, just do it bigger.
I think there are 2 Charlie Days. There's Charlie from It's Always Sunny Charlie Day, and there's the Mountain Dew commercials Charlie Day. This is way more Mountain Dew commercials Charlie Day, and I feel like the first movie had more It's Always Sunny Charlie Day.
You gotta balance. See, you have a dial on your dash.
Yeah.
That determines... Well, it's the dial that
Philadelphia
determines
Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Philadelphia Mountain Dew. Anyway, no, so like they took this turn with his character and they took this inflection and like they're clearly, hey, it's been a while since we had some good honest to God queer baiting. Like, you know what? This is classic. This is Supernatural season 4 level. We are going back in time because clearly, like if you Google anything with these characters, you're going to come across smutty fan art probably created in 2013 on Tumblr and reblogged by me. Like, this was an extremely popular thing to come out of this movie. Like, more, I would say, even than the protagonist characters. I think if you're a production company and you're working on this script and you have 7 different writers working on this script, like, when you're trying to think of what markets to hit, obviously this was big in China. There's a lot of elements in this that, like, play to a Chinese audience. What else was big about this movie? Well, the robots. So check those off. We got a bunch of new ones. And then these scientists. And there is so much played here, especially when Charlie Day actually physically attacks. And there's like this like almost tearful, like, what have you become kind of thing. Like, they're very clearly going for those notes. But again, this is queer baiting like we haven't seen in forever. They would never say in an interview that this is a love story. But all of these scenes were made to be gift by sad girls who don't know that they're boys yet. Like, this is all made for queer people on Tumblr.
Anyway, the orange mech is super sick. That's my favorite one.
Wow, cool robot.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I mean, just that's my bit on him. I really feel like they slaughtered my boy. I get how you get from A to Z, and I kind of find this stuff interesting. I like the idea of, like, your fascination becoming your compulsion. But ultimately what it drives him to do is have a bunch of weird organic robots built in secret that's ultimate power is to stitch kaijus together. And everyone just watches and lets this happen.
My script doctor moment for this is, like, cut the precursors out of the picture completely fucking entirely. Make this about Newt and about him kind of losing it a little bit. And, like, again, work the cultist angle in a little bit. Totally get rid of all the fucking shit with the lasers and the opening of the breach. What if we were doing, like, a weird kaiju renaissance by giving them these mech bodies? Like, this would have been so much better as just that. But
Absolutely.
Like, you made it a weird right angle into Shitsville, and it makes no sense. Like, anyway.
Okay,
yeah.
so
The 3 kaiju merge into mega kaiju, and they're like, gotta get up this mountain.
Hey, you really just, okay. So they had this cool ass fight where they knock these things down and they've defeated them. And then Charlie Day opens a garage. And what the fuck was that?
This is gross. I don't like this. Is too
so
bug
funny.
for me.
When Lee Win was like, "Oh my god, it's one of my automated factories."
I know.
Man, how do you not get the budget report?
I did like the throwaway line of, oh, he got away with this because half of their industry is automated, so she didn't notice. And it's like, okay, bad bossmanship, you know. But also, what are those things?
It doesn't matter. Their only purpose is to be stitching kaijus together.
Okay.
This is stupid.
I'm gonna level with you.
Right. We all agree this is fucking stupid.
It took me so long to figure out that they were not just repairing them, they were stitching them together. I was like, oh shit, they're really struggling against this one and there's 2 left.
Yeah, you spend $1 billion on this CG sequence. Like, this is all entirely CG. Like, everything about this is generated. Like, none of this is practical. And you couldn't zoom out. Like, it's so close up on all the weird little gross meat stitching parts. It does not make it clear that what it's doing until you see the giant kaiju, which does not look very cool. The individual kaijus looked cooler, and I didn't even want them there to begin with. Like, it's dumb.
It's dumb. But the whole thing, we gotta get this big-ass boy up this mountain into Mount Fuji so that we can do global warming real styles.
I think that's like this Super Saiyan show moment of the 4 of them dropping in and, you know, we're gonna defeat them together.
And they get their asses kicked, like
They
universally get their asses kicked.
One person dies and it's Boob Job Guy, which is
and it's Boob Job Guy. It's sad. I will say, so the orange mech doing all of its cool kicks and having its swords, that all looks super cool.
It very evokes Eva, like with its weird palisade things and everything.
Yeah, totally. And maybe that's why I'm like obsessed with it. Like, I like when they're weird and lanky and do like weird acrobatic shit. That's my favorite.
Yeah, I will say the background info on that mech, that's Saber Athena. The background info on that one, apparently it was an experimental Jaeger that they were working on with the lighter frame, which is how it can move like that. So There was some intentionality behind the design on some of these, other than just like visually distinct.
I really love how that came through in the movie too.
That one actually does move different.
The other all-timer moment is just when I know that it makes no sense how these three people are able to pilot this, but when the Russian chick drops into the secondary pod and turns the Gatling guns around, I was like, we're back, let's go. I was like standing up.
That was actually cool. How does it work? I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Apparently she's just not in the neural handshake, but anyway.
Yeah.
It was incredibly cool.
She's like a B-29 gunner going into the ball turret.
Oh, yeah.
I thought she was the one who was going to get murked down there.
That seemed like the obvious kill, but apparently they were just like, man, fuck this one guy in particular.
So I want to talk about weightiness. For me, and this entire sequence I think exemplifies it, I don't think this had the same weight that the first movie. Like, they are moving through buildings so easily. They are moving so fast. They are not slow at all, even the big, bulky ones. Like, there just seems like a weightlessness to this that CGI sometimes has that the first movie compensated for very well. You felt they were heavy, but this whole sequence just...
Totally agree. I think it's an art direction thing, personally. But go ahead, Nico.
No, I think specifically of a sequence in the first movie where Gypsy Danger picks up a cargo ship to use as a bat.
Yes.
You really feel the weight of the cargo ship. You feel the power of the Jaeger being able to pick this thing up, but only being able to pick it up and drag it until it moves in for the swing. And yeah, in this one, like, there's a gravity gun that he uses to drop skyscrapers.
This is the gun from fucking Half-Life.
Yeah.
It's the grav gun from Half-Life.
Yeah.
And he's using it to drop skyscrapers on this thing, and skyscrapers don't seem to affect them or the kaiju. It does feel weightless.
This is something that I think is really I think Guillermo I can't speak today. Holy shit.
Oh, you are really struggling, buddy.
Del Toro understood about like old kaiju and like tokusatsu, like Sentai era shit, which was just like how they made the city models and how they made it look like things were destroying a human city, and how to make that devastation look important and real, was to make sure that like the buildings felt like they were buildings, like people lived in those. Like if they feel like cardboard constructs in this movie. And this is a huge difference I think I see in a lot of Western approaches to this kind of genre. If you think about like Godzilla X Kong and Godzilla -1, the sequence in Godzilla -1 where like one of the only sequences where it fires its beam in a city where you think that the love interest dies.
Yeah.
That sequence looks incredible because there's still a lot of infrastructure standing at the end of that. It's the devastation that you see in the people and like the story and how the tension has kind of created that moment that really sells it. Whereas like in Godzilla X Kong, they're just wading through Rio de Janeiro at the very end. Like they're literally just like walking through buildings, and it doesn't look the same. It doesn't hit the same. It just feels weightless, and it's a CGI thing. I also just think it's generally an art direction and a visuals like department thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Alice, there's also an Easter egg that I'm surprised you haven't talked about yet.
Wait, it's not the Trollolol video?
No.
We don't need to talk about that.
No, there's a different Easter egg that's just for Alice.
Hey,
okay.
When they crash in front of the Gundam, the building says Anaheim Electronics, and I fucking love it! You know I love Anaheim Electronics. Nico, you won't get this. Anaheim Electronics are the developers in the background of the Gundam series who are... I don't want to say evil Nazi scientists, but they're kind of the developers of every mech system in the Gundam UC universe. And when I saw them on the building, I pressed my screenshot button 15 times and was screaming.
Taking photos.
What we're talking about?
Yeah.
Because
that and the Gundam statue in general.
What was that?
That and the Gundam statue in general. But yes.
Oh yeah, the Gundam statue in general. I was like, fucking love that they did it.
I think that's a real statue.
They did it.
I'm not sure. I think that's a real statue that they have in Tokyo somewhere. Okay,
they're dismantling it. It's coming down.
Aww.
Yeah.
We were thinking about coming, and they said, we gotta get this out of here. We gotta get this shit out of here. And it all comes down to Lee Win comes in to save the day. Now that Brian's pointed it out, I can't unthink it. Mako Mori's ghost, I guess, is here. She comes down in Scrapper.
So Scrapper is a single pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
this
small.
is explained because it's small?
It's small.
Yeah.
Okay. So if a scrapping person has come up with this idea and concept, how does the PPDC not have these for policing and shit? If you could just make a smaller version of this, why don't world countries have these?
So much is made of the initial sequence where they're trying to run away, and it's so chaotic, and so many people probably die in that sequence because the fucking cop mech is too big.
I love the cop mech tases him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Alice, what you're yearning for is a movie with world building and consideration for it,
okay,
and I don't think this is the one.
Anyway, she's upgraded it. And I actually liked this sequence. So how are we going to defeat this kaiju that's about to climb into Mount Fuji? What's the plan, guys?
We gotta
Volatile liquid rocket fuel.
volatile liquid rocket.
We gotta Shagohod this shit.
We gotta take a booster pack. We only have the one, and we gotta spot weld it to your hand.
I kind of liked that little sequence. It was pretty cool.
It was cute, but I was like, why are we spot welding? Wouldn't the hand just come off?
Now, why do we need to rocket? Are we going to rocket into the sky and do a suplex from low orbit?
Yeah. John Boyega's had a groundbreaking idea, and it's what if Jaeger was Bullet? So
I
he
thought
wants
about
to
this a
launch
lot.
them up into low atmosphere.
I've thought about this a lot, and it started making me think. So in the Pacific Rim universe, they come from the ocean, right?
Yep.
So we have the technology to have satellites. We own space. There's this wonderful theoretical weapon called the Hammer of God, in which you take tungsten rods into space, and you can directionally drop them from space. And just by dropping it coming down in orbit is more powerful than like a Tsar Bomba nuke, because the impact of this metal rod from orbit hitting the Earth is so explosive, and but with like none of the bad parts of a nuke. So this is a theoretical weapon. We have Jaegers, which I feel like is more hard to develop than metal rod in space. So all this to say, how have we not come up with the technology to just drop something from space onto kaiju? How is that not something we explored?
Don't worry about it.
A fucking mech into the sky and drop it? We don't have bomber planes? We can't nuke this one and say, sorry, Japan, you're getting a third.
We're getting into CinemaSins territory. I just want to know how there is not a single Air Force, there's not a single Navy, there's not a single gun.
There are no
bomb,
ground troops. Yeah.
Absolutely no response to this.
They'd be out there shooting this thing for sport.
I mean, even in Evangelion, the JDSF like will shoot a gun at an angel. So like it never does anything, but they try.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, most of a Jaeger's weapons are traditional. What makes them good is they can get into a fist fight with it, which is how you have to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, love this sequence. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So they go up into the atmosphere. They drop.
Wait, who flies up? Who pilots this?
Oh God, that's right.
We have to talk about this.
Scott.
Oh right, yeah.
Eastwood gets anime protagonist disease, where there's blood on his side and he can't fight. So he has to be ejected, and instead we gotta get in here, teenage girl. We love child soldiers. Get in here, baby.
At least with this drift, they did a little bit of groundwork by having them practice together a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the only one. So much of the significance of the first movie was placed on the emotional connection between pilots. It only matters sometimes. Don't worry about it.
Hey, we already got over our tragic backstory.
The fact that we didn't get jack shit between Nate and fucking Jake. The fact that we did not get jack shit between those characters is so baffling to me.
I kind of love it in they're an old divorced couple that's back together again kind of vibes. Like, oh, we were waiting. We've already done all of that.
You think about like Macross Plus and like Gold and Isamu at the very end. It is 15 seconds, and you're like, oh my god, bros are dudes. They only needed 15 seconds. Like
they could not have made me dudes rock if they wanted to.
Yeah, exactly.
They tried with the let's do the move thing. No,
That was
didn't
the
get
closest they got, but then like there was nothing to follow on from that. So anyway, I don't know. He's out of the picture. We got to get the teenage girl in here. It's Amara and him, and they got to turn it into a bullet. And they're like, okay, now that we've done this, we got to escape in the same escape pod. But oh no, it malfunctioned. So who saves the day? I just need to tell you, as a person who has survived a rollover car accident, them loose in Speedy as it rolled down Mount Fuji after dropping from orbit, they are spaghetti paste in there.
They're salsa. Yeah, this was wild.
Salsa. Again, totally weightless, and yet we saw Suresh's like fucked up crispied arm. Like this movie.
I do like the payoff of the remote piloting. It actually works, and there is a technology, and she's able to pilot that remotely. I do like that. That's a good payoff
the
for
whole
her.
trajectory of her, where she's very much the anime waif, like paper thin Asian woman with like dope makeup and incredible outfits that's just cold as fuck. And then at the end she is down there. She's doing what Amara should have done and is like dirty and has like wrenches and like plasma cutters and shit. Like she's doing the work, and like I liked that kind of whole thing for her. And I love Scrapper so much. I love that it does ball. I like that it becomes little ball. That's good.
Also,
you know what movie we should get? Death Race, but with Scrappers.
I would fucking love that shit. That would be so good.
Yeah.
There's an entire arc of Full Metal Panic, Invisible Victory. One of the arcs is they are in South America and participating in these underground mech fights with like old hardware that people are stitching together. And it's so good. And I just wanted that. Anyway,
when
also,
are we writing a screenplay? We make a lot of jokes about Patreon. When are we writing a screenplay?
I'm an
We could do
ideas
it.
girl.
Let's
Only
do
if I
it.
can have a self-insert. Can I have a self-insert?
No, I mean, wait. No, we actually, that's the one self-insert we need.
Yeah. But don't worry. Okay. A whole bunch of things have happened, but how are we going to know that the movie's ended?
We get a title card.
Well, no, we have the girl go, we did it. Which just killed me. I laid on the side of Mount Fuji and she goes, we did it. And I was like,
I just remember sitting there, like, it really does. Like, they land, they get out, you see that they're alive, the end.
well, and then you get the post-title card brief sequence of John Boyega coming to threaten Charlie Day.
Oh, my God, this was so stupid.
John Boyega really put his whole pussy into delivering the stupidest lines ever written. And Charlie Day witnessed it.
Oh, my God, I forgot about this. Oh, the implication.
See this movie.
Don't see this movie, because you know what? At the end, they imply that they are going to try to do this again.
They imply that we're going to do a ground invasion of the alien home world. America is coming. No, I'm kidding.
They have weapons of mass destruction across the rift. We have to invade. I have come to the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps to make an argument that they have weapons of mass destruction in those kaiju.
The fucked up thing is they've now made the kaiju blood oil. So now it's like,
it was just, when it was revealed, we're doing Avatar 2, The Way of Water? Okay, that's all right.
Well, and the thing was, it already was oil, but in the first movie, it was oil in the sense of oil slicks. Kaiju blue was like a serious oceanic problem. Yeah. Especially the fact that they kept emerging out of the ocean and getting killed in the ocean. It was creating dead zones. And so, like, it was oil in the first movie, but it wasn't valuable. And now it's valuable.
I bet it'd be great to smoke
imperialism.
That shit,
oh my God, smoking on that shit that made the kaiju blue.
Hey, we missed one thing that I want to get back to, and I want any of your opinions on. How about that speech?
Fucking Christ.
I don't even remember it.
I like how they keep saying they're not going to do another run at it, and John Boyega keeps saying, I'm not my father, and they can't help themselves.
It's so bad.
Except he is his father in, like, every single way. Like, he has, like, an adopted daughter. He does all this shit. He tries to pilot a Jaeger by himself twice. Like, he literally is just doing Stacker Pentecost's story, but, like, kind of worse.
And not getting to do it cool styles like it implied he would in the beginning. Do you know how much I would have paid for a Nate Jake drift scene where Nate comes out of the drift because he was like, you were balling so hard and I was here eating fucking PPDC branded oatmeal.
Hey, real quick, I want to talk about one other thing, which is the ice cream scene.
Okay, hey, I have so many things to talk about, but let's go on. Talk about the ice cream scene.
Yes.
Because I have thoughts.
Do it.
So, they're having quips. This is the most Buffy, this is the most Joss Whedon scene I've ever seen.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
They're having quips. Jake is making the most unappetizing fucking ice cream sundae I've ever seen. He just takes like one scoop of ice cream,
2 tablespoons ice cream,
drenches it in fucking whipped cream, and then like a little bit of sprinkles, and then gets yelled at for having too many toppings. There's 2 toppings.
He also
This is
just
garbage.
eats a fistful of sprinkles in a way that was like...
I just had to talk about that because I was like, this is also the first time their relationship completely 180s for no reason.
Yeah.
They hate each other's guts, and then they're having ice cream together and making jokes.
Well, see, this was a scene I liked because it was almost like, God, you're up to your old tricks again. You're making shit-ass ice cream. You're not taking me seriously. Do you know how much this movie would have gone if John Boyega ate a fistful of sprinkles and grinned at this dude, and then he got Brokeback Mountain style jumped? Like, do you know how hard this movie would have gone if it had been I fucking hate you. Everything about you irritates me. Let's make out sloppy
This
style.
scene needed a food fight into gay sex.
Yeah, this literally
They should have been
needed a
fucking in
fried
that
green
kitchen.
tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. Like, we just
Shut the fuck up. You can't put that in the same episode as this terrible movie.
Okay,
You
but
cannot.
what if they had a Kaiju, or what if they piloted a Jaeger together? Anyway,
Well, that-
hey, look out for our fried green tomato sequel story.
Oh, yes, exactly. We were robbed.
Listen, if fucking Trash Future can do the story of John Taliban, I think we can do fried green tomatoes, but with mechs. I think we can do it.
Okay, so this is where this movie like really showed its ass, I like to say. It's where I could finally be like, oh, this isn't a military movie. This is a superhero movie. So they're in a kitchen at the Shatterdome. If you know anything about being in the military, the kitchen never shuts down. When they're done with dinner, they start working on breakfast. Like, they're constantly cooking. It's empty. Also, why do they have sprinkles? They're in a
Everything is
military
branded.
base. It's all branded. It's all very nice, which is like, oh, do they have money? But here's where this movie tries so much in so many ways to like have a visual style to it. There are lights behind the fridge. So you have a visual cue of this nice, cool, like, backlighting. And the whole movie has lighting sources everywhere to have this cool visual cue. It's so unrealistic, and it makes me mad. Why are there lights behind the fridges? Somebody had to install those in this military base before they put in these military freezers.
Tune into Alice's guesting on CinemaSins for this whole movie.
You know what? I'm with her. Why the fuck we got gamer fridge? Gamer fridge in the industrial size PPDC sprinkle carton.
Like, they should have their own little, like, their little pilot cafe area, their little kitchenette that they're fucking in.
There was a cafeteria in the first one. Okay, you know what? We got to do something important, and it's not talk about this fucking sprinkles anymore.
Okay.
I just think if your institution saved the world, you're allowed to have Jimmy's and an RGB gamer fridge as a treat.
Okay, but in the same way that a pilot in the military has their own lounge that's much nicer than the military-grade cafeteria, I feel like Jaeger pilots deserve their own little thing of Jimmy sprinkles and not the industrial tub.
That's fair.
I would not want to eat after John Boyega.
I would.
He licked the ice cream scoop and then went back for more. He just grabbed a fistful of sprinkles barehanded.
Where's the downside?
That's why I'm saying Nate should have jumped his ass like, oh, you're so rancid. To close, I have a quote from Guillermo del Toro from the Entertainment Weekly interview. And I feel like it just, Mr. del Toro said, I didn't see the final movie because that's like watching home movies from your ex-wife, he said. It is terrible if they're good and worse if they're bad, or the opposite. You don't want to know.
Thank you so much, Mr. Del Toro.
Mr. Del Toro.
Oh, all right. What are your closing thoughts on this thing?
I said it.
Yeah.
The sprinkles was my last bit I had to get out.
Okay. Alice, what do we need to do now?
We gotta rate these goddamn Jaegers.
We do. All right. We have seen a number of different Jaegers, perhaps enough to get a plastic toy line. But the ones of significance that I've pulled out for us: Scrapper, Amara's built Little Mech, November Ajax, Sir not appearing in the rest of this film, Gypsy Avenger, Obsidian Fury, Bracer Phoenix, Guardian Bravo. You remember those two? They were in it. Saber Athena, and the Drone Jaegers. So we got our little guys. Thank you for having a screenshot of. They were really having some beers and some pasta sauce.
Where's the light coming from?
My RGB gamer fridge. Anyway.
Okay. So I had to look through our old past rankings to see where I thought this would lie, because this is a Mech podcast. I'm not talking about filmmaking, despite me trying to be on CinemaSins this episode. This is about the Mechs. And Scrappy, Mech of all time. I love a built Mech. It's very... So when you see a lot of like thrown together Mechs, they usually have a bunch of different design elements to them. This feels like whoever designed it had a consistent idea, and I could see Amara building this with purpose. Like, yeah, some of it's bolted on, but like, she has a look that she wants for it, and it comes through. It turns into a ball and rolls around. Great. November Ajax is the Nothing Burger blue man standing that I love. I love Obsidian Fury and his pecs. I think like it has a good visual design. His movements are good. What he does is good, and I love him in fights. Our lineup, I mean, Orange Girl stand out among them. I didn't really like the weird chain, like mace thing that the one had, and his weird shoulder blades. It seemed very weak, and then I couldn't tell you what the fuck that fourth one was doing with his laser whip. I really could not tell you. But the standout for me is the mass production Evas. I love them. I wish the whole movie was about them and them becoming little freaks. I love that design element. But a mech isn't just a mech. It's a mech and its pilots. And besides Scrappy and Amara, which we really don't get a lot of because after the first scene, Scrappy just exists outside of Amara, there's really not any connection between them. Like, our main guys have no connection to their unit. Nobody is like, that's my girl in the way that a pilot would be. They are all pilots who are assigned a mech at some point, and it really takes from it that these are just vessels for them to embody. And at the end of the day, this felt closer to Power Rangers 2017 than Pacific Rim 2. And for that, it comes in very weak for me at a 3. The mechs are kind of nothing burgers. Scrappy and the mass productions have some fun things, but it's nothing really new. And they're pulled down so much by the movie. And honestly, so little of what the pilots does affects what the mechs are doing that it hurts me. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I do think that the mechs are the most redeemable part of the movie. There's the most fun I have in the movie is mech stuff. Like I said earlier, I really like the orange one a lot. But yeah, none of the pilot stuff really works for me. The movie itself is such kind of like on one hand, I'm really glad that we rate mechs, and this is a great episode for exemplifying why we rate the mechs and not the media itself. But I do think the context in which they exist is super thin on the ground. Like, this was a complaint I had about Mazinger too, right? Which was just that, like, yeah, it does a bunch of cool shit, but a lot of the like stuff that supports the narrative tension that makes that stuff cool or satisfying or like memorable. Like, I don't remember hardly anything about Mazinger Z at this point. It's a lot of this is just going to disappear for me. It's not going to be memorable like the way the mechs look in Promare or anything like that. So I do think this is like a 6. Yeah. There's
a reason I brought up that quote about kind of the design interest around the Jaegers in this film versus the previous film. the idea that they should look more like fighter planes, to me, they look more like luxury cars. Like, there's a lot of elements, not all of them, chain body has more of the tank DNA. But a lot of these, especially given how bright their colors are and how glossy kind of the paint finishes are, and there's not a lot of, like, damage on these until they're actively being, like, destroyed in the field, they strike me as, like, expensive, like, you see the expensive orange, like, Ferrari on Top Gear or whatever, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's what we're doing here with these. Mm-hmm. And what gets me, too, is that, like, snatched waist, broad shoulders, legs, that's a pretty normal, Alice doing a little dance, that's a pretty normal kind of mech design. But in the first, I mean, y'all know me, I'm Cherno Alpha, ride or die. That thing looks like a fucking cooling tower. Like, there are different design elements in these, and these all kind of hit the same note for me of, like, Gundams almost, in the sense of, like, they're very people, and especially, like, they're very, like, narrow waist. There's a lot going on at the shoulders and the back. They've all got the kind of helmet-looking heads. They're just not very visually distinct for me beyond, like, colors. And, like, yeah, there is no weapon that for me is like, oh, this is the thing. Like, Striker Eureka, I believe, was the Australian Jaeger from the first movie. And that's a pretty unremarkable one. But you know what? It had titty missiles, and that was, like, its main thing. Other things did different stuff, but, like, titty missiles was, like, Striker Eureka's thing. Cherno Alpha was really more of a fisticuffs robot. Like, a lot of the motions that they're doing are functionally just, like, hammering blows. Like, there was a little bit more difference in the fighting style, and I think here, Saber Athena gives us the closest we have to, like, a truly distinct fighting style and design. But, like, this whole movie is just way too Transformers for me. Like, legitimately, down to, like, the sports car notes and the way that everything is in broad daylight. Totally. And the mechs just, like, I get why people are frustrated with the darkness of Pacific Rim 1, but, like, also at the same time, like, I feel like that made things seem more imposing and did a little bit more with scale. You know, we were often seeing these things in the context of, like, big phenomena or in, like, obscure circumstances. And, like, I like the ice fight. I felt like that got to show off a little bit more of Obsidian Fury and Gypsy Avenger. But frankly, at the end of the day, like you said, I'll echo both of you. Like, beyond Scrapper, who, again, doesn't really get to be Amara's robot in the end. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like anybody has a personal connection with these Jaegers.
They don't feel special. Yeah.
They don't feel special. They don't. They all look like some variation of each other with some different aftermarket parts. And even when Shao Industries comes in and adds parts to it, they're all painted uniformly, I guess. It would have been really cool to see, like, if somebody needed a replacement arm, it's a big white arm, because Shao Industries' whole, aesthetic identity was around this, like, white plating. Like, there's none of that. There's no care given to, like, these mechs have a journey, or at least, Gypsy Avenger gets some different parts and stuff, but, like, it's not really reflected in the visual design or in the fighting styles. I think the closest I came to a jump up and cheer or a what the fuck moment, which for me in the first movie was the chainsword, was the midsection gunner position. But also that didn't make a lot of sense with how we've known Jaegers to work. So, like, I was
also,
all
it
over
didn't
the
really
place.
it didn't win anything really. So
yeah,
it just looked kind of cool.
So I'm left giving these a 5 despite myself. I feel like these are purely middle of the road. They get the job done, and they've got some interesting elements, and Scrapper does a lot for this whole film in terms of endearing me to the robots. But yeah, mostly I just kept thinking about how much they look like cars that you would buy if you were having a midlife crisis. So
yeah, that's super fair.
I would buy this for a midlife crisis.
Yeah,
I think
what? When Alice rolls up in the Gypsy Avenger Mark II, titties done, ass shots, chrome ice cream paint job.
It's going to be even more racist. It's going to be the...
No.
No. I do agree that one of the things I had a thought of was the one that has the whip, or the one where one of the pilots dies. That robot does have huge Range Rover energy to me.
Yeah, he's giving Range Rover.
Yeah,
he's serving Range Rover. Did I do that right?
He's also serving fried Suresh. All right.
Okay.
God damn it.
We're gonna go to the break, and then after that, I have a very important game all about unique Jaegers.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back.
Hey guys, Alice here. Thanks for listening to On the Shoulders of Giants. We're really happy you're here, but if you know anybody who might be interested, we'd love if you share our work with them. If you are enjoying what we're doing, maybe send us a message, or what would really help us out is if you leave a review online. Really, a lot of the algorithms will push people down if they don't have reviews, so it really helps if you just go and write something on the internet. Heck, we might even read one on the podcast if it's really nice and makes our hearts go doki doki. So if you could do that, maybe do it, and thanks again for listening. Now, back to the show.
Anyway,
It's literally
game time.
giving birth.
It's giving birth.
It's giving birth. Welcome
This
back.
Jaeger is giving birth.
Yeah, you know what? Charlie Day should have delivered a live Jaeger baby on screen.
Oh,
but baby Jaeger.
the ending of Men, but with anyway.
All right. Welcome back from the break. It's time for a game. I have a very special game for y'all today. This game is called Rogues Gallery.
Is this the Pacific Rim mobile game, which was real and we all played?
Oh, yeah, Shatterdome Strike? Yeah.
I don't like that you had that in your pocket, but continue.
Rogues Gallery. So, a major issue 10 years on from the movie that mattered is the intriguing but underexplored issue of unauthorized rogue Jaegers. The availability of the technology in scrap means any number of people and organizations can slap together a giant robot on short notice. Apparently, not that we saw any more of them. This game tasks you, my plucky cadets, with detecting the rogue Jaegers among the real deal. I'll give you the name of 3 Jaegers. 2 will be real, drawn from various canonical Pacific Rim sources. 1 will be a rogue. But where are these rogues coming from? See, I'm answering Alice's question that wasn't answered about Obsidian Fury. Well, when the first Pacific Rim film came out, the website included a Jaeger maker, not a Jägermeister. A flash tool that allowed users to model, name, and share their own Jaegers. And this was extremely popular on Tumblr in 2013. I remember reblogging these.
Hey.
But when I went to my 2013 blog Pacific Rim tag, all it was gay shit about the scientists.
Yeah.
I didn't have any of these motherfuckers. It was 2013 Tumblr. I don't know what to say. Tumblr's strongest soldiers have been preserved on the blog 4th String Jaegers, which is where I have sourced today's rogues. And if you ever want to take incredible psychic damage remembering 2013, it's worth a look. There's an Ebola joke. There's a government shutdown joke. Damn, you remember 2013?
Is there a Jaeger McJaeger face joke?
Yes, there is. There are 2 different variations.
Yes.
We're back,
Yes,
boys.
let's
We're
go.
so back.
Yeah, so I've sourced the most plausible of Tumblr's strongest soldiers as our rogues. For now, again, I'll give you 3 names. You tell me which one is the rogue. If you get it wrong, there will be a chance to steal. Are y'all ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Thank you, my brave cadets. We'll start with Alice. Which of these Jaegers is the rogue? A. Paladin Tornado. B. Romeo Blue. C. Bigger Ben.
It's gotta be Bigger Ben, right?
Yes. One of my favorite things about these
'Cause it's on
Jaeger
the
maker
Atlantic.
things.
They wouldn't have Jaegers in the UK.
One of my favorite things about the Jaeger maker thing was that you could assign Jaegers any nationality, including Vatican City. And so
Pope Mech. Oh my god.
there were a lot of them I couldn't use because they were just puns, like the one that was called I saw a kaiju and I from Iran. So there's a lot. I killed some kaiju and now I'm gonna kill some, or no, I killed a kaiju and now and then it's from Samoa. I'm gonna kill Samoa anyway.
Wow, Tumblr is really funny, guys.
It was a really good period of time. Okay, Brian. Which of these Jaegers is the rogue? Dog Stomper, Brawler Yukon, or Solar Prophet?
Solar Prophet?
That is incorrect. Solar Prophet is a Peruvian Jaeger from Pacific Rim Uprising Ascension. Alice, is it A, Dog Stomper, or B, Brawler Yukon?
It's gotta be Dog Stomper. That's
That is
so
correct.
fucked up of a name.
I didn't think, you know what? I gotta say something. That is really obvious. I feel dumb. I didn't fully process that first one. And I know exactly why. It's because I have our rankings website open and the dancing man in the Hakama is so distracting. I'm gonna.
He's just celebrating our top ranked mechs. I love
That's fair, though. I'm
Y'all
so
should-
sorry, Brian.
We haven't said
I
this in a
love
few
him
episodes.
so
Y'all need to go to our website. We took on a bunch of people from Metal Gear Solid 4, and I don't know if we've talked about it since then. You have got to check out the website. Okay, sorry, go on.
Also, I would like to nominate for our special little guy for this episode, Charlie Day's eyeliner. Just the eyeliner.
It can't be an
Not
object.
Suresh.
All right, next up, Alice. Which of these Jaegers is the rogue? A. Thunder Kinetic. B. No Warranty. C. Horizon Brave.
I want No Warranty to be a name so badly, but I think it's No Warranty.
You are correct. No Warranty is one of Tumblr's strongest soldiers.
Such a good concept.
That would be an excellent name for a rogue Jaeger. Like, legitimately. Like, if you put
Imagine-
something
Yeah.
together, then you were like, this is No Warranty. It's from Ohio.
You get your ass beat by No Warranty, and they're like, sorry, we don't have insurance. And you're like, shit.
All right, Brian, which of these Jaegers is the rogue? Wolf Queen, Puma Real, or Drop Bear?
Puma real? What the hell? I'm gonna go with that one, I guess. I don't know what that means.
That is incorrect. Puma
I'm
Real
bad at
is a
this.
Panamanian. I don't know how to say that. It's from Panama. It is also from Pacific Rim Uprising Ascension. Alice, is it Wolf Queen or Drop Bear?
Drop Bear.
That's correct, Alice.
What the hell?
Crushing
How am I
it. I'm
so
sorry.
bad at the vibes on this?
That was an Australian Jaeger created by Tumblr.
Yeah, I get it. I know what Tumblr jokes are.
Thanks. I'm glad you know our audience.
2013 Tumblr is like, drop bears are hilarious, guys. They still are.
There's
You know, there's
All
just
right.
bears in the trees in Australia. They'll just drop down and attack you.
I actually didn't.
It's real.
So
That's why they invented Striker Eureka. Not for the
That's the
not for
only
the
reason.
kaiju. It's for the drop bears.
Oh, all right. Alice, we are back to you after you stole. Which of these is the rogue? Offertory 6, Shameless Fox, Lucky 7.
Okay, I know that last one is. Give me the other two again.
Offertory 6, Shameless Fox, Lucky 7.
What's that first word? I'm stupid.
Offertory.
What does that mean? Can I have a definition?
Can you get a definition? Let me look it up. I don't actually know.
how do you spell that? I've never heard that word either, I don't think. Offertory?
Offertory, one of the principal parts of the Eucharistic liturgy at which bread and wine are offered to God by the celebrant.
Can you use it in
Oh.
a sentence?
The offertory is part of a Eucharistic service where the bread and wine for use in the service is ceremonially placed on the altar. Thank you,
I'm gonna
Wikipedia.
say that's the fake one.
Damn. Yes, that is the fake one. That one was a Jaeger from Vatican City.
I was about to say, when you started, I was like, oh, this is the Vatican City one. I put it together. Also, I learned a new word today.
Yeah.
Can you
No
spell
one
it?
say our games are not educational. It is spelled offer.
Without looking-
AFF. I said A. I also immediately misspelled it. Can we just go?
Next
Why
question.
did you
Yeah.
give me a wrong buzzer? Brian, which of these Ragers,
Beating you up this episode.
which of these Jaegers is the rogue? Red Flag Horowitz, Acid Geisha, Lonely Goat Herd.
I'm afraid to say anything because I've gotten these so wrong. Lonely Goat Herd?
You are correct. Lonely Goat Herd was
Yes,
a
Lonely-
Swiss mech.
I need to
created
know
by
where the other
Tumblr.
two are from. What the fuck?
Okay. Red Flag Horowitz, nationality unknown, is from Pacific Rim Training Day. And Acid Geisha is a Japanese mech. This was actually from the Pacific Rim draft script, and it was scrapped for being too racist, but Gypsy Danger made it.
Oh my god. Acid Geisha is legit a sick name. What are you
It's so
talking
sick.
about?
What the fuck?
Yeah, but it was supposed to be the first Jaeger that Mako had ever piloted, and they felt like it would be like racist for her to have
sure.
driven the Geisha
Okay.
back. Anyway. Well, Brian, you're on the board, and that's what matters.
There you go.
All right, Alice, which of these Jaegers is the rogue? Tango Tasmania, Hamilton Tux, Shaolin Rouge. Shaolin Rogue, my apologies, Shaolin Rogue.
Okay, what year was this Flash game around?
2013.
Bet it's the Hamilton one.
That's so funny. You're correct, but not for the correct reason, because Hamilton did not come out in 2013.
Oh!
Hamilton Tux is what Canadians call a plaid blazer.
What?
It was a Canadian Jaeger that they put a plaid texture
Wait, so
on.
a Canadian tux is a jean jacket with jeans.
Yeah, but a plaid blazer that you wear in Canada is called a Hamilton Tux.
But all separate from a play that didn't come out for a few years, which...
Yeah, for several years.
Okay, I was Tumblr coding this, and I was like, oh, that's something those freaks are
I
into.
just want to say that's hilarious, and that's also exactly what G Gundam did with their Canadian.
Hey, he had an axe for chopping down trees. Continue.
Oh my god. All right, Brian. Which of these Jaegers is the rogue? Bare Knuckle Gar, Murder Witch, Storm Garuda.
Murder Witch.
You are wrong. That is a unknown nationality Jaeger. It is from the Uprising prequel comics, and technically it does make a cameo in the film. It's in the background.
Murder Witch!
Murder Witch. Alice, which of these is the rogue? Bare Knuckle Gar or Storm Garuda?
Storm Garuda, Garudas are from The Legend of Zelda.
Incorrect. Storm Garuda, spelled Garuda, is an Indonesian Jaeger from the game Pacific Rim Shatterdome Strike.
Let's go!
So no points on that one. That was beautiful, though. No, Bare Knuckle Gar was a Japanese Tumblr creation. I do like the idea that it's just like an angry fish piloting that one.
That fish mad.
All right, Alice, which of these Jaegers is the rogue? Bronco Whiplash, Eden Assassin, or Tacit Ronin?
Oh, Tacit Ronin sounds like some shit that they would write because it sounds really cool. What were the other two?
Bronco Whiplash or Eden Assassin?
I don't think they'd call something Whiplash. I'm going to go with Bronco Whiplash.
I see, you like to deny that you are relevant on Tumblr, but you understand the culture. Yes, you are correct. Bronco Whiplash was an American Tumblr creation.
And I literally was on Tumblr for a whole decade, including this timeline, and I'm not getting any of these.
Brian was in better, different circles.
No, I wasn't!
No, you weren't, apparently.
I was off-site, goddammit.
You're in the dirt with me. Well, this just goes to show that some of the sense of humor of Tumblr must have come from something awful.
Yeah.
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 All right, Brian, our final question. Which of these Jaegers is the rogue? Black Maria, Honest Abe, or Chrome Brutus?
All of these are bad. I really don't want Black Maria to be a real one, so I'm going to say that.
Unfortunately, you are incorrect. This is a funny one. Guillermo del Toro, when asked in an interview if he would include more Mexican stuff in future Pacific Rim sequels, said, yeah, he would include a Mexican Jaeger and floated the name Black Maria. It was supposed to be in Pacific Rim 2.
Brian's expression.
Brian has executed a perfect Florence Pugh upside down U mouth.
Personally attacking Brian with that name.
That like content-aware scaling gif of Florence Pugh like walking and crying from Midsommar. That's me right now.
All right, Alice, is it Honest Abe or Chrome Brutus?
Baby.
Yeah.
I don't think one person is naming something after Honest Abe. There's no way. Like, it's hilarious to think of a mech that has a giant top hat. That's a very Tumblr thing. This is also in the era of like the Abe Lincoln vampire hunter bullshit.
Literally, the caption on this one mentions Abe Lincoln vampire hunter by name.
Okay.
You are correct.
That's the funny thing.
Honest Abe.
That was my first one to strike because I could completely believe that being a fucking Jaeger name for real.
That would be an American Jaeger name, completely real.
Totally.
They would name it like, Honest Abe and like Wooden Teeth George and Jittery Jefferson. He throws nickels.
America would have a Mount Rushmore mech, is what I'm saying.
You mean Mount Snakemore?
It was separated into 4 separate mechs, each of the different founding fathers.
And all of it carved from materials taken from native lands. Yeah.
You know what one of them is called Thomas Jefferson Miku Binder.
See, I couldn't put any of the most obvious ones, but also the funnier ones in here, because it would have just been immediately like, no, my man, Dick Smasher 3000 was not a canonical.
Yeah, why not, though? Let's go.
Oh, all right. Well, it was close, but...
No, it wasn't.
I love lying.
Write in with your Jaeger names, please. We want to hear funny Jaeger names.
Yeah, give us some. Give us some of the
Do you want me to open it?
Tumblr
Okay.
ones.
All right. I'm opening 4th string Jaegers.
Oh, no, that was me. That was me giving the listener a call to action to send us some.
Send in better Jaeger names. Can you do better than teenagers on 2013 Tumblr who are obsessed with the sexual
nationality.
tension?
You have to include nationality.
Yeah, but you do have to include nationality. See, they tried to take it out of this for whatever reason, but oh my god. Do you want to hear a peak 2013 Jaeger name?
Yeah.
Moves like Jaeger. Did that take you back?
That hurt. Let's move on.
I think we should delete Tumblr. Hey, who won?
Trying.
Who won? I need it on record.
Alice, I am going to crown you our Tumblr queen.
No.
Well, you're wearing the blue, so I don't know why you dyed your hair blue. Like.
Oh my god. Oh. Right. Will you guys drift in the 3-person Jaeger with me though?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously. We all got to decide what our trauma memory is going to be, though. Well, thanks for participating in that game. We don't have Thanks. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm getting hot. Can you tell? Anyway. In lieu of a letter this time, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been so kind about our 1-year anniversary. This will drop a little bit after when y'all have been sending these really nice messages, but we've gotten great social media engagement, y'all reaching out to Brian on our various platforms and even to me on Tumblr. Spreading the word, tagging people, getting people into it, talking about it in private discords. That was wild. Thank you for that. We're like, wait, people talk about our shit elsewhere? Okay.
Like, oh no.
And I especially wanted to shout out because I keep meaning to put it in like a promo thing and then I just keep not recording a new one. I did just want to read, we did get a 5-star Apple Podcast review back in May. Thank you so much.
Finally getting around to it.
And I have to assume your username is a test just for me. This was from random guy 756-874-369632. Thank you for that. And they said, my favorite podcast. Right now, this is far and away my favorite podcast. The cast have great chemistry and are always a blast to listen to. Thank you so much. It really does mean the world, and it is really wild to have been doing this and to be covering just like great films. Like this one and the next one, like
just really stand out pieces of American
Collection
cinema.
Who, like
thank you, random guy. Activation code numbers. Thank you.
So we had a letter come in from a listener, MK. They said, hello, OSG, first time listener, first time writer. I was listening to the What is Mechs bonus episode yesterday, which was first of all very much a treat to hear. And thank you, Alice, for the existence of this podcast that I've been enjoying very much. Thank you, Alice.
You're welcome.
But something I was curious about, especially as y'all get close to a year of doing the podcast, congrats on your upcoming anniversary, by the way, thank you, is how your personal mech taxonomies have shifted, if they have, as you've been making this show. Maybe it's something you've talked about on episodes I haven't listened to yet, in which case please ignore me. Absolutely will not do that. We're reading you right now. I'm sure I will find out as I work through the backlog, but I'm curious to know, do you now consider things mechs that you wouldn't have a year ago when you first started recording OSG? I'm having a blast with the show as it happens. Y'all have made me cry laughing like 3 times already, and I can't wait to watch some of the mech anime that I've been putting off so I can listen to y'all talk about it after the fact. My favorite pastime. Hope this email finds you well, or not as the case may be. I can't dictate how your life is going. Cheers, MK. I wish you would dictate how it was going.
First off, don't watch Price of Smiles, and don't listen to those episodes.
No, listen to those episodes.
I think the more that we tell people not to listen to Price of Smiles or watch Price of Smiles, we're driving numbers. We are putting numbers on the board for that anime.
We're selling units. We're selling Thayer gears.
Oh, well, I do think this is interesting because, yeah, we're over a year on, and I think we've definitely looked at some mechs that I don't think any of us individually had really looked at the same way that we have with the show. So what do y'all think? How have your taxonomy shifted?
I honestly thought that we should do another, like, when we first had our first episode, I was like, we should do this every year because it's going to evolve, especially as I've exposed myself. And what I want to say specifically to me is that while there aren't things that I now consider a mech that I didn't, I've kind of tightened up on what I would consider a mech. So I was very big in that episode talking about how, like, a prosthetic arm can be a mech or a tank can be a mech. And as we've gotten in, I think there's more to it. I kind of was down on the idea of, you know, a mech is what you put into it emotionally and everything. And I was like, no, it's a machinery you turn on. And now I do kind of see it more as having to have that connection. Especially you see it in this episode, like, these are good robots. These are good machines in some ways. You know, without a connection, without that pilot part, it just wasn't as much. And we did the Phantom Pain recently, and, like, I didn't even consider his arm a mech. And that's completely against what I would have said in the first episode. So for me, I've become more tightened into this, and I don't want to say I'm going to become like some weird mecha purist. I'm very much like, this space can include everybody and everything, and whatever somebody wants to define as a mech, I can recognize that. But in so much as I don't consider an M1 Abrams a mech anymore, I also think that, you know, there does need to be a human connection, or maybe not human, a connection with a soul-holding being. I don't know. I'm not drunk enough to discuss mechs, but that's where I've kind of changed as we've gone on. What about you, Brian?
I don't know. I don't know that mine has changed very much. I already had a pretty open idea. And, like, for me, the taxonomy was more just about ascribing things and being upfront about what is going to hit for us. And I think I've really maintained that. Like, working with scale, like the thematic kind of through beats being something that informs and mediates how you enjoy or don't enjoy a particular design. All of those things are still super true for me. I will say the rating system and the fact that we've kept records on that, again, go check out the website, has been it's a really interesting thing to look at, because there are things really low on that list that, like, might be surprising. Like, I surprised myself with how low I've rated a couple of things, like, looking at it later, because I don't fucking remember shit. My memory is nothing. But yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, I like the idea of, I look forward to something that does kind of change my perspective in some way. Whether that be, like, I think the thing that's gotten close has been Metallic Rouge. Because I gave that a surprisingly a high rating, despite the fact that I really don't think that those are mechs for me. Or at least they don't hit the same things that I like in a mech. But, like, there's space in that Mecha Musume, like, genre that might surprise me later on down the road. And so, like, I'm kind of like looking for that. And I would say that that's probably the biggest thing that's come about as far as this show and doing all of these, like, methodologies as, like, cataloging our experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been interesting. I think in counterpoint to Alice frequently and often jokingly going, well, the Girls Watch in the Vision of Escaflowne is a mech. The Nokia in fucking Voices of a Distant Star is a mech. Like, it's a joke, but it also has made me think more about, like, our human relationship to technology and how technology augments us. You know, and in ways that we detect and in ways that we don't detect. So I've been thinking more about that. I have been thinking more about, like, where is my line between a cyborg or an android and a mech? Because, again, I think Metallic Rouge was something that kind of pushed that a little bit. And, like, we've talked about doing stuff like Ghost in the Shell and Ghost in the Shell standalone complex and other things where it's like, you know, we could talk about the Tachikoma, but we could also literally talk about Major, and like, you know, there's some interesting ground to be covered there. I've also had some interesting, like, weird biases exposed in an interesting way, like the fact that I consider Fallout Power Armor a mech, but I have like a visceral negative gut reaction to Mecha Musume, despite the fact that like it may not be full enclosure, but like scale clearly isn't as big of a factor in my definition of mech as I thought it was, especially when we named the show On the Shoulders of Giants. But like, yeah, like I'm having those things pushed, and like encountering the super robot genre for the first time for me, because I just really hadn't engaged with anything like that when we were covering Mazinger. Like, I'm finding that there are things that I like and dislike about mechs, and obviously our likes and dislikes are going to inform kind of what we consider a mech as a thing that we like. But like, I don't know, I've really enjoyed the fact that I've been pushed on some of my like hard stances, and that I've also really had the experience of having to like put my money where my mouth is and like rate something like Synduality Noir high because it was hitting all the right mech notes for me, and then rate something
Totally.
I'm not thinking of a good example right now, but like rate something lower that it's like technically I liked this more and I felt like this was doing more thematically, but the designs just like weren't there, you know?
Maybe Metal Gear Solid 1, which you kind of like turned back around on later.
My regrets on my scoring for Metal Gear Solid 1. I'm only grateful that thankfully Metal Gear Solid 4 gave me a chance to like express my contrition with how I did Metal Gear Rex dirty. But like,
I would love an episode where we go back and maybe not officially do an updated list, but I would love for us
score revision.
Something I find very funny is I am the only one on this podcast to give something a 1. And
yeah, that's
me and Nico have
interesting.
both given something a 2. Brian has never gone below a 3 so far, which I think is
we gotta
just
find
fun
more
data.
dog shit for Brian.
Look, I'm going to say this right now. Based on the liminal amount of research I've done, there may be something to be said about the next episode that we record.
Oh man, no, we got to bring Appleseed in because Brian hates the CGI.
Oh my fucking god,
yeah.
it's so bad. Okay,
it's so bad. We got to bring that in.
We
But,
do need to answer the last part of this this email, which is how did this email find us all? I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. Everything's going okay.
I'm doing good.
I just dyed my hair blue.
Because you're the queen of Tumblr.
Yeah, I just reactivated
Alice
my
is going to go
Tumblr.
on a one-woman invasion of the UK in her mech, by the way. That's
Yeah.
what...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm doing my Lelock of the Rebellion. I'm taking over the UK.
That's beautiful. That was just for Brian. Brian is experiencing some emotions right now.
Will she pronounce it correctly? Nobody knows.
I'm not going to say the right pronunciation, but just listener know that I am suffering with you.
Oh, I was going to also say, to the Metal Gear specifically, it has pushed my definition and made me think more about drones. Because I feel like that is a series that ended up being really interested in the lines between mechs and drones and mechs and robots and stuff.
Totally.
In a way that has actually been compelling to me despite the immense psychic damage that Hideo Kojima has given me. So
Yeah, but how did this email find you?
Oh, fucking tired. Y'all, I did the prep for this episode so late. I'm buying, don't buy a house. House isn't a mech. You don't need it.
Maybe your house.
Don't buy a
isn't
house. Yeah.
We are looking at getting a tractor, and I am kind of in my feelings about like what kind of tractor we get.
Can you
like,
paint it like Unit 1?
I kind of want to. I'm thinking about the fucking Char Aznavour forklift.
Red, let's go! Brian, how did this email find you? We don't talk about ourselves enough on this pod.
We don't. I'm doing good. I play, so Dark Lore, Elden Ring is my favorite video game of all time. And they got a DLC, it's not even that new of a thing anymore, but I've still put another 150 hours into the game since the DLC came out, and I'm plugging along. Right after we're done here, I'm going to go do more of that. I'm doing great.
I love that for you so much. I've got to unload my car full of shit from Lowe's that I bought yesterday, but...
I'm getting my nails done. We all have something going
I'm glad
on.
we're all in character.
This is just who we are? We're not characters? What are you talking about?
We're in our lanes. We are really...
We're in our lanes. We're in our eras. No,
Thank you, MK.
just thank you for writing in, MK. I do want to say just on that note, not to give anything away specifically, but The next like 3 months have got a lot of interesting things going on for us. And like both in our personal lives and also in terms of the podcast feed. So look for that. If you're new here or if you didn't know about any of like the stuff that we've been working on, because I've been a little bit down low about it, just know that the feed may be struck with some surprises, and some not surprises. So
maybe you should listen to some podcasts like Giant Robot FM and also Follow the Leader. Maybe you should check those out.
Maybe you should check
Not
those
saying
out.
Why.
Not
One
saying
is
why at all.
our older brother podcast. We've established Giant Robot FM is our Oni-chan. We haven't decided where Follow the Leader is on this. I think it should be One-chan.
They have senpai energy to me, actually.
They do have senpai
They
energy.
do have senpai energy. We're in a club
I'm
together.
so sorry to our listeners. You've been forcibly assigned senpai.
This is what I bring to this space. I'm picking up MK and I'm giving them a gentle kiss on the forehead and I'm thanking them for their letter. I am
Thank
parasocial
you.
with our fans. MK.
And our colleagues in the space. Thank you.
And our colleagues in the space.
And my colleagues in this podcast. I'm picking up Brian, giving
Stop
a gentle
picking
little
us up.
Mwah. Well, I'm in my full-sized Jaeger, and you're in your little one-person Jaegers, and I'm picking you up, and I'm going, Mwah, but it's like clanging together because we're mechs.
That's beautiful. All right. That was this episode of On the Shoulders of Giants, where we discussed Pacific Rim Uprising. Do we have any parting thoughts on this film?
Bro, no. This movie's bad. Don't
this is
watch
outside
it.
of my brain. I'm deleting this memory.
You don't need to hold on to it. I still think they could have saved it if they went gayer, but they were too afraid.
Wait, is this one of our rare don't watch it?
Yeah, honestly,
hey guys.
don't watch it. If you started to watch this movie before listening to this podcast, turn it off.
You've heard of Be Good and Rewatch It. You all should just be bad and don't watch it at all. That's what
just
we're here to say.
Don't do it.
That's the official
right.
stance on Pac
Yeah,
Rim 2.
the official stance of OSG Pod is don't watch Pacific Rim Uprising.
But listen to us about it.
Listen to us, and thank you for listening. Pilots, remember, you can reach out for advice from the team at our email, questions@osgpod.com, and non-pilots can send general questions or feedback to the same address. You can also catch up with us on social media. The links are in the description for updates and more. Make sure to check back in 2 weeks when we'll be breaking apart another cinema masterpiece, G-Savior. Until then, goodbye. I love you.
Goodbye. I love you.
Goodbye. I love you.